Good morning. Welcome to the 2017 IRA National Championships. Coming up soon, we'll have the first heat of the men's Varsity 8. In lane 1 will be Navy, lane 2 Northeastern, lane 3 Washington, lane 4 Brown, lane 5 Columbia, and lane 6 UC San Diego. So pretty exciting race situation we got this morning. The water's terrific, nice and calm. Flags are not even moving right now. Looks like we should have fantastic racing all day today, so stay tuned. Okay, so folks, we have the live overhead drone view brought to you by the alumni from the university, from Brown University. So it's a first time attempting this, and hopefully we get a great picture. It looks like we're just now getting underway with the first heat of the varsity men. So out in lane 3, it looks like our early leader is Washington, with Brown and Northeastern battling just behind them for that next qualifying spot into the semifinals. Okay, so Washington's moving out a little bit on Brown. Good picture from the side here. You can see Northeastern looking to be that second crew right now, with Brown very tight to them. So Brown and Northeastern also fought really hard in the heat of the Eastern sprints when a mishap happened with 150 meters to go, and Brown moved on into the finals with Northeastern moving into the petite and doing a fantastic job in the petite final to walk away with that win. So Washington now looking to stretch out, get up to the bow of the Brown crew, slowly inching forward on the Northeastern boat as well.
For the Huskies, 37 for Brown. The Northeastern crew now trying to put down a good race after their disappointment at these sprints. And it looks like Bruno's found some magic down on the seat pump, because they're starting to pull away from Northeastern. Bruno now has 3 seats, maybe a little more, as Washington pulls out 7 or 8 seats on Brown. But Brown now is your clear second place crew. Northeastern has got to wind it up if they're going to catch Brown for that second spot. Then it's over to Navy for fourth place. Navy's linked up on Columbia, and Columbia's got a linked on San Diego. Brown is making a nice push back into Washington now. Brown's bow is on the 6th seat of Washington, so wow, good for Brown. They found some rhythm now, got their crew sorted out. I know they did a lot of selection the last 2 weeks. They're out of exams, so they look like a totally different crew from the Eastern sprints. Northeastern now almost a full length back of Brown. Northeastern holding off Navy. Navy's about, and it's back to Columbia. Bob, I'm come up a little bit right with the big dog on the West Coast. So Northeastern may be saving it for the wrap this afternoon. I'm sure that wasn't their plan when they went off the line.
Okay, so now as we come up along the beach here, it looks like we have that Washington crew out in the lead. Brown giving a good fight. Northeastern just back of Brown. As they approach the beach, they get into the final 250 meters here. Good first heat of the 2017 IRAs. Perfect conditions out here. The weather is just wonderful. Looking like we're going to hit about 90 degrees this afternoon, so it'll get a little warmer for the repechage in the afternoon, but perfect conditions out here. Washington taking advantage of it out in lane 3 with the Brown crew trailing in the second qualifying position. So from this race, it'll be top 2 going directly into the semifinals, and all other crews will be racing in the reps this afternoon for the chance to be in the semifinals tomorrow going through the reps. So we got Washington with Brown just behind them giving a good fight, and Northeastern ahead of Navy, who's running in 4th, with Columbia in 5th and UC San Diego in lane 6 running in 6th. So Washington is across the line, winners of the first heat of the 2017 IRA. Brown in the second qualifying position, Northeastern in 3rd, and Navy finishing in 4th. Columbia in 5th, and coming in 6th here is the crew from UC San Diego. So in a few minutes, we'll be out at the start line again for the start of our second heat of the men's Varsity 8. In lane 1, Oregon State University. In lane 2, Cornell. In lane 3, University of California. Dartmouth University in lane 4, George Washington University in 5, and Santa Clara out in lane 6. Okay, so here you can see the view from the drone. You can see the crews for Heat 2 assembling there, getting into the starting platform. Great race conditions here, and the starting platform here at Lake Natomas really makes it easy for these crews to pull in, get locked in, and ready to go for their heat. The drone view gives us a great picture from above. We'll see if we can get a little bit more consistent view from it for Heat 2 here. Looks like a couple of the crews have locked in. We got a couple more coming back to the starting platform right now. And in Heat 1, that was Washington who was your winner, 5:36.892. Brown in second at 5:38.08. Northeastern finishing in 5:43.7. Navy in 5:50.1. Columbia 5:59.2, and UC San Diego in 6:07.1. So looking at this next race here, we have Cal, the number 2 seed, beat Washington earlier in the season at the dual regatta up in Seattle. Washington turned that result around at the Pac-12 Championships. And then you also have Dartmouth, who's having a good season, led by Coach Wyatt Allen, Ivy League Coach of the Year for 2017. And the Cornell crew in lane 2, seated number 10, coming into the IRA regatta. So we can expect a pretty good race between Cornell and Dartmouth and California, and looking for 2 crews to qualify into the semifinals. And a reminder that everyone else moves into the repechage in the afternoon, with 1 boat from each repechage ending up into the AB semifinals. So good opportunity here this morning to move directly into the semifinals, not have to race in the afternoon heat. Gives these crews a little bit of an incentive. So again, looking from our drone picture, in lane 1, Oregon State. Lane 2, on the left-hand side is lane number 1. Lane 1 was Oregon State. Lane 2, Cornell. Lane 3, California. Lane 4, Dartmouth. Lane 5, George Washington. And lane 6, Santa Clara. So all crews are now on the starting platform. We have a great view from this drone. Big thanks to Brown coach Paul Cook and the alumni of Brown University for getting this set up for the IRA Regatta. So we'll be shortly underway here for Heat 2 of the men's Varsity 8. And out in the launch today, Fred Schock and Bob Jogstad will be having your call from on the water. Colleen Seville and myself, Steve Todd, we will have the call from the shore. And we're off. Heat 2 of the IRA Varsity 8 semifinal. So we're looking down from this view. You can see the crew from California got a nice early kick. They have a very powerful start. They've done well with that start throughout most of the year. This season they had great races against Yale down at the San Diego Crew Classic. California coming away as the winner of the Crew Classic. Following that up with wins over Stanford and Wisconsin, and the dual meet win over Washington. Their only really blemish on the record is the loss to Washington at the Pac-12 Championships, but Cal looks to be asserting themselves early on here in this race. So we have Dartmouth in lane 4 and Cornell in lane 2, and it looks like the California crew is taking and walking away in the first 500 meters here, with Dartmouth and Cornell really fighting close, and the crew from George Washington giving chase to Dartmouth right now early in this race. So Oregon State and Santa Clara have dropped off just a little bit. We still have overlap of almost all the crews. California out in the lead. The view from above, it's looking to be just over half a length lead for California here before 500 meters, with Cornell maybe just a touch up on the crew from Dartmouth, with George Washington trailing Santa Clara and Oregon State just behind George Washington. So California looking very strong in the early going. Let's head over to the launch and get the call from them for the middle of the race.
Half a length further back to Santa Clara and Oregon State. California begins to creep away. The coxswain of the Cal boat is now very close to the bow ball of Cornell. Cornell has established itself in second place by about one deck over Dartmouth. Moving up a bit, George Washington is within a deck of Dartmouth. So we've got a pretty good fight here for second, third, and fourth as California eases away in the middle of the field. And it's about not quite a length back to Oregon State and Santa Clara. California now at 750 meters has nearly one length over Cornell. Dartmouth surges again. Dartmouth has made up ground on Cornell. They're about a seat and a half, 2 seats back. That's also placed them about a half a length ahead of George Washington, who now has a full length over Oregon State and Santa Clara. So at 900 meters, for the first time, California has placed a little bit of open water in front of the Cornell bow. It's still a real dogfight between Cornell and Dartmouth. That's about a deck length apart. George Washington hanging tough, still within a half a length of Dartmouth. Cornell, a little bit of a burst there. They're pulling slightly further ahead of Dartmouth. That's now about a third of a length. So it's California with about 5 feet of open water over Cornell. Cornell now with nearly a half a length over Dartmouth. Dartmouth by half a length over George Washington. 1 length back from George Washington. Oregon State and Santa Clara nearly level. So it's Cornell pushing back now even a bit on California. They're just about overlapped. It's Dartmouth still hanging in there. Dartmouth still half a length from Cornell and within striking distance. Another 2/3 of a length back now to George Washington. And then a little open water back to Oregon State and Santa Clara. A bit of a response from California. They open about 5 feet open again. So it looks like there's at 600 meters to go. So Oregon from Cal going into 500. Half a length back.
Okay, so California with the open water lead, and it looks like Cornell kind of beating their seed right now ahead of the crew from Dartmouth. So Cornell doing a nice job coming in seeded 10th right at just now ahead of the number 7 seed from Dartmouth. So Cornell doing a good job hanging right behind California. California looking calm, comfortable, and in control here as they hit the beach. So California crew knows this race course well. Their coxswain's very familiar with it. He knows exactly what to do now. They're in control, rowing along the shore, looking very strong at the catch end for California. So Dartmouth just behind the Cornell crew. Then we got 2 crews to qualify for the semifinals. The remainder move on to the repechage. So in lane 1, closest to the shore is Oregon State. Lane 2, Cornell. And lane 3, California, your leader. Lane 4 is Dartmouth. Lane 5, George Washington, and Santa Clara out in lane 6. So California looking good control. Doesn't seem to have to bump the rate up to sprint right now. Looking good with controlled length. Dartmouth giving a little challenge to Cornell, but Cornell looking very strong in that qualifying position here. Dartmouth is trying as best as they can to edge and move into that second qualifier and skip the afternoon race. But right now it looks like we have California as the winner of Heat 2 in the men's varsity. Cornell with second. Dartmouth third. George Washington in fourth. Oregon State in fifth. And Santa Clara finishing out the field in sixth. So good racing from California, great racing from Cornell to move up over their seed and beat number 7 Dartmouth. So a good race there in our second heat. We'll get ready for heat number 3 of the men's varsity 8 coming up shortly. Okay, so we had a great race there from California, controlling it the whole way down in heat number 2. So Washington was your winner in heat number 1. California, your winner in heat number 2. Brown and Cornell are the other 2 crews moving on to the AB semifinal. A little fist bump in the Cornell crew there. Pretty happy with their result from this morning. So we'll be heading out to the line for heat number 3 with Florida Tech in lane 1, Syracuse in 2, Yale in 3, Boston University in 4, Penn in lane 5, and Hobart in lane 6. And the unofficial results from heat 2, California in 540.3, Cornell 542.8, Dartmouth 544.3, George Washington 549.7, Oregon State 557.8, and Santa Clara rounding out the field 601.8. So good racing in heat number 2. We look forward to another great race here in heat number 3. Heat number 3, one of the exciting matchups here is the Syracuse crew versus the Boston University crew. Syracuse at their cup race in April was able to beat Boston University. Boston University turned that result around at Eastern Sprints, doing a great job at sprints, finishing in 4th place just behind Princeton, just barely out of the medals. And Syracuse finishing 8th at the sprints, just ahead of Wisconsin in a very tight race between Syracuse, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, with Cornell winning that petite final of the Eastern Sprints. So Yale looks to be the favored crew. They're the number 3 seed coming in here, your Eastern Sprints champions from 2017. Last year's silver medalist to the University of California crew. Yale did a great job of racing last year at the IRA, hoping to do the same thing and be back in the medals again this season. So we're seeing the view from the drone now. All crews have locked into the stake boats. Again, from left to right on the view from the drone. Lane 1, Florida Tech. Lane 2, Syracuse. Lane 3, Yale. Lane 4, Boston University. Lane 5, Pennsylvania. Lane 6, Hobart. So we got a good shot from above. You can see the race course, perfect conditions. Couple of crews coming up, finishing up their warm-up there off to the left-hand side of the crews. Lake Natoma provides a great opportunity, plenty of room. The crews can pass the starting platform, head up into the upper end of the lake, do a couple of laps, get ready, pull into the stake boats, have a practice start, return to the docks, and be ready for their race. So heat number 3 about to be underway here at the 2017 IRA National Championships. Okay, so the crews have pulled away from the stake boats just a little bit, getting resituated. Going to be backing back into their stake boats, making sure that the coxswains have a nice straight line, that everyone is going to be clear of each other coming off the starting platform here. So once all crews are locked in, the referees will check with each lane and go through the start. So again, looking at our qualifiers into the semifinals from the first 2 heats. In heat number 1, Washington and Brown were your 2 qualifying crews. In heat number 2, California and Cornell were the 2 qualifiers. And in this race here, in lane number 1, Florida Tech was your qualifier, coming on the automatic qualification spot from the SIRA Regatta, the Southern Intercollegiate Rowing Association Championship, where they won that. And then Hobart was your winner from the National Invitational Rowing Championship as an automatic qualifier for this year's IRA Regatta. Yale as the winner of sprints. The top 9 crews from Eastern Sprints are automatically selected. And it looks like the crews are all backed into the stake boats again. Looks to be everyone locked on. We should be moments away from the start of Heat 3 of the men's Varsity 8 race. And here we go. We have a start to Heat 3 of the men's Varsity 8. So the overhead view from the drone here, we'll get a view and pick up who picks the early lead here in just a second. But you can see nice and fast start from all crews. Florida Tech looking like a good start out in lane 1. Yale, the number 3 seed, doing a very nice job in the first 10 strokes or so to get their bow ahead, with Boston University hanging right with them. And it doesn't look like Penn or Syracuse have dropped back much at all. So a pretty tight pack here in Heat 3 early on. It actually looks like Yale may be getting a little separation from the other 5, but the other 5 crews have really stayed tight to each other. Good overlap. Doesn't look like anyone's dropped off in the first 200 meters or so. But Yale looks to be the clear leader, shooting out to a nice early lead. Can't quite tell the margin from the drone. Looks about a half a length right now as they get started. So we're looking for 2 crews to go to the semifinals, the remainder going to the repechage. But clearly right now, Yale looks to be the lead crew, doing a nice job getting out almost a length before the first 500 meters. And really not much separation at all between lane 2, 4, and 5. So good racing between some of these other crews. Let's go out to the launch and for the middle 1,000.
Correction, FIT and Syracuse on the inside, 1 and 2, running second and third, and BU in 4, Pennsylvania 5, and Hobart in 6. So it's Syracuse showing good speed here, taking over second spot now. Boston University is trying to make a push here to get back into them as Yale just about breaks open water here in the second 500. Yes, it's a strong-looking Syracuse crew now that's got 5 or 6 seats on the rest of Boston University and on the inside FIT. Then a good push now from Penn coming up to challenge BU. BU's in third, but almost 8 seats back of the Orangemen. At the 1,000, it's Yale, open water, over Syracuse. Syracuse, 8 seats up over BU. Boston University. Boston University, 2 or 3 seats up on Penn. Penn, a couple seats up on Hobart. FIT, check that. FIT with Hobart in 6th. So, again, we've had some real surprises or turnarounds, I guess, with Brown this morning in the first heat, then Cornell in the second, and now Syracuse looking quite strong here in the third heat. So, a little time to regroup after the Eastern sprints, and we've got some different looks and different speeds out of these crews. Syracuse charging back on Yale now, starting to come up strong on them. Boston University trying to get back into Syracuse, but with a third 500 here, it's going to be a lot to make up 3+ seconds. Yale still in control as we approach 650. Syracuse is rowing pretty high. A bit lower.
Okay, here we go. Down to the beach. Looking like Yale in good control here. Syracuse doing a great job in lane 2 to try for that second qualifying position into the semifinals. But we are getting a good fight from Boston University and Pennsylvania as well. So Florida Tech on the inside lane here, closest to the shore. Hobart out in the far lane. So Yale, your number 3 seed for the IRA Varsity Men's 8, is doing a great job in lane 3 because long, strong, and comfortable. A lot like California and Washington were in the first 2 heats. And a good fight. It looks like Syracuse comfortably in that second position right now, with Boston University and Pennsylvania trying to give them a little bit of fight here as we come into 250 meters to go. It looks like we have a pretty clear qualifier in Yale, with Syracuse running in that second qualifying position. So a little upset from the orange here over Boston University. So again, we got Yale out as your leader in lane 3, Syracuse in 2, Boston in third, with Pennsylvania just trailing Boston University. And in that first qualifying position for the semis, it's Yale, followed by Syracuse with a nice row this morning, Boston University and Pennsylvania in 4th. And now 5th and 6th, good fight from Hobart and Florida Tech for that final 5th and 6th positions here. It's very close between those two, looking like Florida Tech might have just edged out Hobart. So we'll get the results to you for heat number 3 of the Varsity Men's 8 here shortly, and prepare you for heat number 4, the final heat of the Men's Varsity 8, coming up shortly. Good effort by the crew from Yale to really row a very strong first 500 meters, establish their lead, contain and control through the middle of the race and walk away with it at the finish and qualify into that semifinal. So a good effort from the crew from Yale. Syracuse throwing down a great race as the number 11 seed, beating the number 6 seed Boston University. Boston was followed by Penn, and then Florida Tech and Hobart in 5th and 6th position. So you can follow along online. You can follow on Twitter, follow IRA at IRA Rowing Champs to get lots of up-to-date results and information about the regatta. Heat number 3's results, unofficial results here from the shore. Yale 5:42.3, Syracuse 5:45.3, Boston University 5:48.7, Pennsylvania 5:49.8, Florida Tech 6:01.1, and Hobart 6:01.18. So close race for that 5th and 6th position. But Yale and Syracuse are your two crews that move on into the semifinals. The remaining crews will be in the repechage this afternoon, with the winner of each repechage joining these semifinal qualifiers from this morning. So as we head out to the start here shortly, will be heat number 4 of the men's varsity 8. Drexel in lane 1, Stanford in lane 2, Harvard in 4, Princeton in 5, Wisconsin's in lane 5, and St. Joe's out in lane 6. So we have our last heat of the men's varsity 8. We'll be following that up shortly after with heats for the men's varsity lightweight 8s. We'll have 2 heats for the men's varsity lightweight 8s, and we'll move back into the heavyweight races with the men's second varsity coming up after the lightweights.
I get blue screen from them. Blue.
So looking at heat 4 here, Harvard is your highest seed crew. Harvard is seeded number 4 this year, and Princeton just behind them at number 5. Stanford is the 12 seed with Wisconsin as the 13 seed. Drexel in lane 1, and finally St. Joe's, who's having a nice season, out in lane 6. So Drexel and St. Joe's were the 2 qualifiers from the Dadvale Regatta. Stanford earning 3rd place at the Pac-12 Regatta, automatically qualified. Harvard and Princeton were automatic bids from the Eastern Sprints, as well as Wisconsin. So again, 2 crews from this race will be moving on to the semifinals, and the remainder moving into the repechage this afternoon, with those varsity 8s reps starting at 2 o'clock and running 2 o'clock up till 2:30 for the men's varsity 8 reps. So you get some really great races in there. It's kind of a last chance to be in the conversation as a top 12 crew by winning one of those reps. So we get some great racing this afternoon for those final qualification spots. And we're underway here. Sorry about missing the start of that. We had to get the drone back up in the air. It looks like lane 3 right now, Harvard taking the advantage over the rest of the field. So right now we've got Harvard as your leader, Princeton just behind them, Wisconsin and Stanford running nearly level in that 3rd and 4th position. Drexel in lane 1 in 5th, and out in lane 6 running in 6th place is St. Joe's. So early it looks like Harvard taking a great start. Princeton being challenged a little bit by the Wisconsin crew and the Stanford crew, and Princeton again trying to move back into the lead that Harvard has established off the line. Let's head over to the launch. Oh. Okay, we'll keep going. And Harvard is the leader, clearly out. And with Princeton just behind them, good picture from our drone here, kind of looking across the course. You can see Harvard with Princeton just a length behind them. It looks like Stanford and Wisconsin overlapping the Princeton crew still, trying to give a little chase to the Tigers. So Wisconsin and Stanford trying to fight with Princeton for that next qualifying spot. It looks like Harvard has locked up that first qualifying spot into the semifinal. Princeton right now comfortably in the 2nd position, with Wisconsin and Stanford just behind them Drexel behind Stanford, and St. Joe's in 6th. So the view from the shore here, looking long range down the course, you can see a nice strong catch from the Harvard crew. You can see a good unified splash coming off the blade as they enter the water. Stanford there in lane 2, so looking down the course here, Drexel's the right-hand lane in your picture. Stanford in lane 2, Harvard in 3, Princeton in the next qualifying position right now in lane 4, Wisconsin out in 5, and St. Joe's in lane 6. So Harvard is trying to lock up that qualifying spot and move into the semifinals. Princeton right now in the second qualifying spot, holding to seed right now with the number 4 seeded Harvard crew, the number 5 seeded Princeton crew, holding those 2 spots that move into the semifinals. So Harvard was your silver medalist at Eastern Sprints, followed closely with Princeton, who just held off the Boston University crew for that bronze medal. Wisconsin was your 9th place finisher at Eastern Sprints, and Stanford was 3rd at the Pac-12 Championships. And earlier in the season, Stanford and Wisconsin raced at Redwood Shores here in California, with Wisconsin coming away with a win over Stanford. And right now it looks like Harvard is your qualifying in first place, with Princeton just behind them in that second qualifying position. Now the fight for the higher qualifying spot for the repechage with Wisconsin and Stanford in that next little battle. So clearly the crew from Harvard looking long, strong, and comfortable here as they hit the beach. They're running, just haven't had to lift the rate very much at all, a lot like the crews that won the first 3. Washington, California, Yale were your winners of the first 3 heats, with it's looking like Harvard coming away with as the winner of heat number 4. Princeton just behind Harvard in that second qualifying position right now, and Stanford and Wisconsin seem to be lifting the rate, getting into a fight to see who's going to take that 3rd position. Right now you got Harvard with just about a length over Princeton. Princeton with a touch of open water ahead of Wisconsin and Stanford, with Stanford moving to the line as fast as they can. Close race. It looks like it's going to be Stanford just ahead of Wisconsin there for 3rd. So we've got the winner, Harvard, Princeton in 2nd. And we get 5th and 6th coming in here now. Drexel just over St. Joe's by about a deck length. So good race for the 5th and 6th positions as well. So Harvard was your winner. Princeton in the second qualifying position. Stanford just edging out Wisconsin. And Drexel ahead of St. Joe's for that 5th and 6th position. So that completes the first set of races here. The Varsity 8 heats will be moving on shortly into the Varsity men's lightweight 8s. All right, and so the unofficial results from heat number 4 of the men's Varsity 8. Harvard was your winner. Harvard in 5:38.0. Princeton 5:41.1. Stanford in 5:45.2. Wisconsin 5:45.6. Drexel 5:57.4. And St. Joe's in 5:58.2. So the 2 qualifiers into the semifinal are Harvard and Princeton. They will be joining Yale, Syracuse from heat number 3, Cal and Cornell from heat number 2, and Washington and Brown from heat number 1. So we'll be back shortly with the heats. Heat number 1 of the men's Varsity lightweight 8. Okay, so we have our crews backed into the starting platform here for the first heat of the lightweight men's 8. So in heat number 1, we have Princeton, Cornell, Columbia, and Georgetown. And they'll be followed up by heat number 2 with Yale, Harvard, Pennsylvania, and Navy. So with only 8 crews racing in the men's lightweight 8, it's top 3 onto the grand finals for Sunday, and the fourth place crews will be in the petite final on Sunday, a 2-boat race to determine 7th and 8th place overall in the country in the lightweight 8.
So I would unplug the Cat 5 from the air deck and plug it back in.
So with just a 4-boat race, we don't utilize lane 1. You can see lane 2 is the lane that Princeton is in, Cornell in lane 3, Columbia in 4, and Georgetown out in 5. We have a start here, and the number 1 seed, the Big Red from Cornell. The winners of Eastern Sprints, just under a second over the Harvard crew, with Pennsylvania was your bronze medalist at sprints. So we can expect nice tight racing here. The lightweight competition is always very close. Good racing between all these crews. So Cornell getting the early lead. Right now Cornell looks to have established a couple seat lead here from the view from above. So Cornell getting off to a nice clean quick start, moving away from the crews from Princeton and Columbia, with Georgetown just trailing the Columbia and Princeton crews as well. So early going here, we have Cornell over Princeton and Columbia, with Georgetown trailing. So the Cornell crew looking very strong and quick. You can see the picture from above. You can see good conditions out on the lake. The wind has there's barely a breath of it right now. Nothing to really affect the crews. Not going to slow anyone down, not going to make for any challenging conditions. So very different from what these crews saw at Eastern Sprints a few weeks ago. But it looks like Cornell's taking good advantage of the great conditions here and moving about 3 seats or so up on the crew from Columbia, with Princeton just trailing Columbia and Georgetown running in the 4th position right now.
Okay, ready? Give it a shot.
So Cornell doing a good job of establishing that early race rhythm. And let's go ahead and head on out to the launch for the call of this first heat of the men's lightweight 8.
5 seats over the Tigers, but Columbia now is working hard to get back in the mix here, but it's 3 to go through, I'm told, for this progression. So the first 3 crews will go advance. So the work here is to be done is Georgetown wants to get back in this fight here with Columbia. The Big Red, the Eastern Sprint champions, look like they're in comfortable control of this race. 36.5 or so, turning over. They're letting the Tigers come back just a little bit. Tiger bow on Big Red's 7 seat. And Columbia is working hard coming up. There's just a couple seats back. Call it a deck back of the Tigers. All crews running about the same stroke rating. 36.5. Big Red looks maybe a half a click higher. At the 1,000, nothing has changed. The Big Red now stroke man on Princeton bow. So maybe they're taking a spurt here. And let's see if Columbia comes up. That's what I would look for, is Columbia to challenge Princeton. And Georgetown slipping back just a little bit now, probably open water behind Columbia. So can Columbia's bowman get level with the Princeton bowman? And it looks like right there they've taken a move. And Columbia has probably, I'd call it a half a foot over the Tigers, although it's seesawing back and forth depending on the angle. But give the Lions a half a seat. Big Red in control. A lot of seniors in that crew, hungry for a win and hungry to maintain that winning form from the Eastern Sprints. Columbia now has a full seat over the Tigers. Although it's just for show here, just for placing. But they would like to have an improved finish over their fourth place finish at the Eastern Sprints. Out in front to go.
Okay, with 500 meters to go, Cornell, your leader, Princeton, and Columbia in a tight race for that second and third position. Georgetown just out of the qualifying for the grand final. So Cornell, your Eastern Sprints champions, looking like they're going to take this first heat of the lightweight 8. Columbia and Princeton giving chase here. Columbia was last year's IRA national champion, and Princeton was the 2016 bronze medal, with Cornell finishing last year, the 2016 season, in 5th place at the IRA. So Cornell turning things around this season with a great effort. Good to win the Eastern Sprints. Coming back now to Lake Natoma here, trying for an IRA championship. So Cornell is your leader, and it looks like we have a tight race between Columbia and Princeton for that second and third spot. All three of these crews should be moving on to the grand final tomorrow, with Georgetown moving into the petite final tomorrow, or on Sunday. So Cornell, your leader, clearly ahead of the crew from Columbia and Princeton. Columbia and Princeton in a fairly tight race for that second place. Columbia, a lot like the heavyweight winners of the heavyweight heats, staying calm, staying comfortable, rowing very well as they cross the line in that first position. Columbia in second, with Princeton in third. Georgetown will be moving to the petite final in fourth position. So a good first heat of the men's lightweight 8. We're 3 moving on to the grand finals, 1 crew moving on to the petite finals. Those will be on Sunday. So we'll take a look at the unofficial results from that race here shortly, and then we'll move back out for the second heat of the men's lightweight 8, which will be Yale, Harvard, Pennsylvania, and Navy. So Cornell running a very strong race, start to finish here. Your leader from the off the start all the way through the finish. Cornell doing a great job there, with Columbia finishing second and Princeton in third. Those crews will all be in the grand final on Sunday to determine the national champion. And the unofficial results from Heat 1 of the lightweight 8. We have Cornell 5:51.9. Columbia finishing second in 5:54.4. Princeton in third, 5:56.2. And Georgetown in 5:59.5. So we'll head out shortly for the next heat of the lightweight men's 8s here. Again, we don't utilize lane 1, so they're in the 4 center lanes of the course. Yale will be in lane 2, Harvard in lane 3, Pennsylvania in 4, and Navy in 5. And we should expect a pretty good race between the Harvard crew and the Pennsylvania crew, finishing as the silver medalist and bronze medalist at the Eastern Sprints. Yale was also in the grand final, with Navy just missing that, but winning the petite final at Sprints. Should be excellent racing from these 4 lightweight varsity crews. So again, the view from above, provided by Brown University alumni, doing a very generous donation to get set up for this drone view high above the race course. So the 4 crews are locked in here. We should be starting the second heat of the lightweight 8 shortly. So the 2016 IRA Regatta, the winners, the national champions at 2016 were the Columbia lightweights, and followed by Yale and Princeton as the top three in the 2016 championships. Cornell, who is your number one seed here this year, turned things around from finishing 5th last year. Harvard looking to do the same thing as the 6th place finisher from 2016, trying to get a much better result here in the men's lightweight 8 in the 2017 running of the national championship. So we should be underway shortly with second heat of the lightweight 8. We got to start here, looking up from above here. It looks like a nice tight field early. Pennsylvania maybe taking a slight lead on the Harvard crew right off the line here. So a nice quick start from Penn in lane number 4, with Harvard just behind them, and Yale in that lane closest to shore, lane 2, with Harvard in 3, Penn in 4, and Navy in lane 5. So you can see a very tight packed field here, very competitive between all 4 of these crews. It looks like Penn has the lead early on here with a nice start, a good, clean, aggressive start from Pennsylvania. There we go. From the side here, we can see Pennsylvania up on Harvard and Yale, with Navy running very tight as well. So we have a very packed field for this second heat of the lightweight 8. We'll see as they come up close to the launch here, see if we can get a good picture of who's really holding that lead. So right now it looks from this angle that Pennsylvania has the lead, with Yale and Navy running very close behind them, maybe only a deck to maybe a seat or two, with Harvard running in the 4th position right now. So Harvard's going to have to gain some traction here in the middle 1,000 and move back in for one of those 3 qualifying spots to the grand final. Let's head out to
Pennsylvania. It's another seat back to Navy, and from Navy, maybe half a seat now to Harvard as they begin to surge as well. So it is Yale that is drawn level with Pennsylvania, but here at 700 meters, it is 3 seats from first place Yale to last place, 4th place Harvard. This is quite the battle at this moment. With 3 to qualify, we've got 4 boats just banging against each other, hammer and nail. It's Yale now with a 2-seat lead. Yale begins to extend itself out. It's Harvard coming up. They're still a deck length behind Penn, but they have just managed to nudge in front of Navy. So it's Yale now by a quarter of a length over Penn. Penn by about 3 feet over Harvard. Harvard by about 3 feet over Navy as we cross the 1,000-meter mark. Penn puts in a little burst at the 1,000. They're actually moving back on Yale. Penn now within 2.5 seats of Yale again. And that puts them about a third of a length ahead of Harvard, who has about a seat on Navy. It's Penn still moving. Penn draws to within a seat of Yale. Penn now with about a third of a length on Navy, who is in 4th. It's Harvard in between those 2. Penn continues to cruise. Penn within 2 or 3 strokes of drawing level with Yale. It's then a third of a length back to Harvard and 2 more seats back to Navy. We've got 750 meters to go, and Penn has regained a slim lead over Yale. It's then a half a length back to a pretty good fight between Harvard and Navy for the 3rd position. It's Harvard by about 3 seats over Navy. As we head for the 500-meter mark, we're about 10 strokes away. It's Penn seats on Yale. Harvard. Navy. Navy's about
We have the crew from Yale. In the next lane over is Harvard, Pennsylvania in lane 4, and Navy out in lane 5. So good competition for 3 spots to qualify for the grand final. So tough to tell exactly the lead, but it looks like Pennsylvania and Yale are fighting bow ball to bow ball right now as they get up to the shoreline. With Harvard just trailing them, Navy trying to throw everything they can to get into that qualifying spot for the grand finals on Sunday. So good racing here, overlapping. 4 crews coming down, 3 to qualify for the grand final. 1 crew will be moving on to the petite final on Sunday. Right now we can't quite pick who between the Pennsylvania crew and the Yale crew. It's too tight, but both crews lifting the rate. They want that final spot, that top spot, because come the grand final, the lane position could matter. So we want to see who's going to come out as the number 1 in this second heat of the lightweight eights. So Pennsylvania, Yale, and Harvard looking to qualify for the grand final. Which order still to be determined. Navy will be moving into the petite. So Pennsylvania is your leader right now, with Harvard coming fast on the Yale crew. Pennsylvania with Yale in second and Harvard in third. And it looks like the midshipmen will be moving into the petite final, finishing in 4th position. So one of the best races of the morning so far, with Pennsylvania coming from the 3rd seed, upsetting Harvard and finishing ahead of the crew from Yale. So those 3 will be moving on into the grand final for the lightweight men's 8 national championship. So from heat 1, the 3 crews going to the grand final will be Cornell, Columbia, and Princeton. And from heat 2, the 3 will be Pennsylvania, Yale, and Harvard. The petite final will be Georgetown versus Navy to determine the 7th and 8th position overall. So we'll be back shortly with the heats for the heavyweight men's 2nd varsity 8s. So should be coming up shortly with those, with heat number 1 of the 2nd varsity. In lane 1 will be Navy, lane 2 George Washington, lane 3 Washington, lane 4 Brown, lane 5 Oregon State, and in lane 6 UC San Diego. This was the 2016 IRA. Prince top 6, Pac-12.
We don't test. What is it? We tested.
Oh, and that's the rivalry, right?
Yeah.
Oh, do you want to tell the story of that?
No, I don't really want to actually.
Here we go.
Fair enough. Actually, I'm here.
I don't want to stand. Okay. Do you want me to do it or you?
I'll do the duties and then, yeah, we can switch. When do I start? Like,
Make a run to the back.
okay. Can you guys cue me for this one just because I'm like getting in for the first time? Cue me. That works too. Start.
No, it's just nobody moved. Okay, wait, can she hit you? That's
Yeah, wait a second. Hold on. Oh,
okay.
We're about 1 minute to the start of the second Varsity 8 Heat 1. In Lane 1, Navy. Lane 2, George Washington University. Lane 3, Washington. Lane 4, Brown. And Lane 5, Oregon State University. Lane 6, University of California, San Diego. And these crews are off. This is Heat 1 of the second Varsity 8. Looks like Washington, really clean, nice start from that crew. Washington, of course, coming into this event with the seed 1. They were 4th last year, and it looks like they have had a really nice, clean start here off the line, with the rest of the pack pretty tight behind them. Brown moving well in the first 250, 300 meters as well. Brown comes in with the 7th seed. They finished 8th last year in this event. But it's Washington clearly in control in the first 500. And look at them go with this beautiful shot from the drones. As all of these crews approach 500 meters down, it is Washington and Brown. George Washington getting work done in the first 500 as well. But it's Washington first to step into the second 5, and we'll hand it over to the launch.
Almost a full length on the field now, followed closely by Brown. Brown is in second, then it goes over to lane 1. I think it's going to be Navy is running in third, a very close third with George Washington tightly packed in there. Then all the way out here to lane 6, and San Diego would be running 5th and Oregon State in 6th. Open water for the Washington Huskies. I was remarking in practice yesterday that JV crew from Washington looks technically as good as they come, and they are powering down the course here, a quarter length open ahead of Bruno and the Naval Academy. So they grow some big trees up in the state of Washington.
And now moving through the middle of the race, all of these crews approaching the 500 to go. Where are they? 750 down.
In San Diego. Washington now, almost half a length open in the third 500 here. Bruno trying to hold off George Washington for the qualifiers. Steady as for the Huskies. And GW close the 2 seats the Brown House. That's where the...
Okay. And these crews now in the third 500, approaching the last stretch here, the last 500 to go. Sounds like in the middle 1,000 we saw good work from George Washington University with our early leader, Washington, and of course GW University and Brown fighting for the second place position to skip the reps this afternoon. Washington looking long and strong, controlled aggression here in the Heat 1 of the men's second Varsity 8. And we'll see as these crews get a little bit closer who is holding that second place qualifying position. But again, Washington clearly in control of this race as these crews come through the 500 to go. And it's seed number 1, Washington, again, who finished 4th in this event last year. And is it Brown? Is it George Washington University? As these crews now come through with just about 250 meters to go. Washington looking long and controlled. And it's Washington and Brown in the first and second place position now moving into the last 10, 15 strokes of this race. Seed 1, Washington now with an open water lead on second place. Brown in lane 4. It is Washington and Brown that will advance to the semis this afternoon. Washington looking very clean as they come through. Brown now moving through the line. And it's George Washington University in third, with Navy in fourth. Oregon State on the far side, just about to come through the line now in fifth, with University of California, San Diego in lane 6 and their final 10 strokes, which means it is Washington and Brown to advance straight to the semis, and the rest of these crews to the reps this afternoon. And we see the fair race flag. Up next, Heat 2 of the men's second Varsity 8. And times for Heat 1, we had Washington at 5:45.4. Second place, Brown at 5:50.6. George Washington in third at 5:56.6. Navy in fourth at a 6:02.2. Oregon State clocking in at 6:08.2. And University of California, San Diego at a 6:18. Which means Washington and Brown will head straight to the semis. Thank you. And we're at the start of the second Varsity 8 Heat 2. And these crews are off at Stanford Northeastern, California Cornell, Penn, and Santa Clara University now in their starting strokes for Heat 2 of the men's second Varsity 8. And Cal, no surprise, off to a clean start there. They're our second seed, and they finished third last year in this event. Looking like Cal is at least already up a half a length, maybe a full length on lane 4 Cornell. And these crews now lengthening out into their base cadence. Cal clearly in command of this race. Again, our second seed here. Up, I'd say, just about a length or so on Cornell. And Northeastern in lane 2. These crews now approaching the 500 meters down. And again, it's a race for first and second to skip the reps this afternoon and head straight to the semis. Cal definitely asserting their dominance now in the first 5. Will it be Northeastern or Cornell to go with them? Not counting out the rest of the field, who's moving along too. We'll hand it over to the middle 1,000 and the crew on the water.
Seats. That would be Northeastern, Stanford, Cornell, and Pennsylvania. That's a splash of water back to Santa Clara. California has now moved into a full-length lead, and it's Northeastern easing into second place now. Just barely at both Pennsylvania and Cornell, with Stanford about 2 seats further back. So in open water now at 700 meters for California. Northeastern in second by about a deck over Penn and Cornell. Who's in third depends on whose lead is in the water at the moment. Penn, with a nice little push, has closed up. Not only have they nosed in front of Cornell, they have caught Northeastern. They are now easing into second place by a couple of feet over the Huskies. And they're not going crazy to do it either. They look nice and steady and comfortable. It is a half a length of open water for California, the 1,000-meter mark. It is 5 feet for Pennsylvania over Northeastern. It is 2 feet for Northeastern over Cornell. And then a half a length back to Stanford, and a little bit of open water back to Santa Clara. California, move away. Looks a lot like the race 10 minutes ago. California now with 3/4 of a length of open water. It is Penn, slowly but surely establishing themselves in second place. They've now got 1/4 length over Northeastern. Northeastern with a deck over Cornell. So this is still going to be a great fight for that second qualifying spot. It's now nearly a length back to Stanford and then open back to Santa Clara. You got to give it to these Quakers. They just keep building inch by inch by inch. Northeastern now with a little flurry. They've cut into Penn by a couple feet, but the Quakers are not yielding. 600 meters to go. It's California very controlled.
And these crews now approaching 500 to go. It is Heat 2 of the second Varsity 8. Cal early lead, looking long and strong with an open water lead on the rest of the field. Is it Cornell? Is it Northeastern? Really tight racing from the rest of the field. We'll see as they get a little bit closer. But Penn, Northeastern, Cornell keeping an eye on these 3 crews to see who will take that second qualifying spot to skip the reps and head straight to the semis. And California, long and strong, clearly in command of this race as these crews now move into the last 250. And the Northeastern Huskies fighting for that second qualifying position spot. Pennsylvania getting work done in the last 20 strokes as well. It is Cal. Pennsylvania moving. But it's California who will cross the line first. A good sprint from the Huskies. It'll be really tight racing here. I'd say it's Northeastern in second, Pennsylvania in third, which means Cal and Northeastern will advance straight to the semifinals, skipping the rep this afternoon with third place Pennsylvania, fourth place Cornell, fifth place Stanford, and sixth place Santa Clara University. So it's Northeastern and California that will advance straight to the semifinals. And in Heat 1, it was Washington and Brown with the rest of these crews heading to the reps this afternoon. Up next, Heat 3 of the men's second Varsity 8. And we're at the start line now, the men's second Varsity 8. This is Heat 3. And in lane 1 is Florida Institute of Technology, lane 2, Wisconsin, lane 3, Princeton, lane 4, Harvard, lane 5, Dartmouth, and lane 6, Hobart. And in this heat, keeping an eye on Harvard and Princeton. Harvard finished first in this event last year, and Princeton finished second last year. This year, Harvard seeded 6th, and Princeton with the 3rd seed. These crews now sitting up at the catch. And these crews are off in their starting sequence. It is Heat 3 of the men's second Varsity 8. Really clean start, I'd say, from all of these crews. And pretty tight as we look into the first 250. I'd say with Harvard advantage over the rest of the field, just slightly though. With Princeton getting out early ahead 2, and Wisconsin in lane 2. But it's the Tigers and the Crimson, I'd say, that are now leading this race, again looking to solidify those first 2 positions to advance straight to the semis this afternoon. It's Harvard, Princeton, Dartmouth about a half a length or a length behind Harvard, I'd say about a half a length, with Wisconsin about a length or so behind Princeton. Princeton and Harvard very close as we look towards the second 500. But Princeton and Harvard are clear leaders in this third heat. Again, Harvard finishing first last year in this event and Princeton finishing second. I'd say it's Harvard over Princeton now coming into the middle K. We'll hand it over to the launch on the water.
And over in lane 1, FIT, and then Hobart trailing a little bit here in lane 6. About back of Princeton trying to level now Harvard. Harvard have an aggressive start, and they're just trying to march down the middle of the course here. Those 2 up front. Now Princeton is taking a push. As said, Harvard led for a while, but now we like the lead. Thank you very much. And they have 2 seats, but 2 qualify. As those 2 crews separate from Wisconsin and Dartmouth. Wisconsin has maybe 2 seats up on the big green. And then it's open water back to FIT, which has a couple of seats on Hobart. Princeton at the 1,000 now has 2 seats on Harvard. But a much sharper looking Harvard JV here. I think Harvard's having a push rebel yell. Let's see if they come up on Tigers at all. Now Tigers are answering it. Those 2 just put a couple more seats between themselves and Wisconsin. Wisconsin and Dartmouth 4-5, or 3-4 I should say. Open water now. The Tigers have taken another push, and now they have 4 seats on Harvard. But again, those 2 are comfortably in qualifying positions for the semifinal. 8 crews go through to the semis from the 4 heats. Tigers looking strong. Let's see if Dartmouth here in 4th can make a push into Wisconsin. And Princeton is 2 or 3 beats higher than Harvard, according to my boatmate here, Bob Stepp.
And now moving into the last 500, a very exciting heat here, the second Varsity 8, Heat 3. Again, keeping an eye on Harvard and Princeton here. Princeton, who has gotten work done in the middle 1,000, clearly we saw Harvard ahead of Princeton in the first 500, but Princeton really starting to move in the middle 1,000. And of course, Princeton, our winner of the 2017 Eastern Sprints Championship. Harvard came in 4th behind them just a few weeks ago. Let's see what these crews get up to in the last 500. But of course, this is a race to advance straight to the semi. And we'll see as these crews get a little bit closer exactly where they stand. But as we saw in the middle 1,000, it was Princeton over Harvard. Princeton with the seed 3, Harvard with seed 6. And here they come now, moving along through the last 250. I'd say Harvard definitely took some water back between 750 and now. And in fact, it is Harvard over Princeton. Beautiful work from them over the last 500 meters or so. Really tight racing. It's Harvard over Princeton by about 2 seats, and they are definitely racing. It's Harvard and Princeton, first and second, going straight to the semis with the rest of the crews now coming through. They'll race this afternoon in the reps. It's Wisconsin in third, Dartmouth fourth. And on the far side, Hobart coming through with Florida Institute of Technology in lane 1 in their final strokes now. What a race from Princeton and Harvard. Of course, a very famous rivalry between these two. We'll see what they get up to in the semis. Up next, heat 4 of the men's second varsity 8, the last heat of the 2Vs. And the winning time of that heat, 5:43.1. Over to Harvard. And that's the fastest time of all the heats so far in the second varsity 8s. And times now for heat 3, which we just saw go by. First was Harvard, and actually that was a 5:42.1, so even a little faster than I originally thought. Second, Princeton, 5:42.4. Third, Wisconsin, 5:53.4. Fourth, Dartmouth at a 5:54.4. Fifth, Hobart, 6:03. And Florida Institute at 6:15.8. And from the drone view, we now see the men's 2v8s. This is heat 4, locking into their stake boats, not yet at the catch. Couple minutes here. So in heat 4, St. Joe's in lane 1, lane 2, Syracuse, lane 3, Yale, lane 4, Boston, lane 5, Columbia, and lane 6, Drexel. These crews gaining their points. With beautiful conditions here, very, very minimal wind, if at all. So keeping an eye on Yale and Boston in particular in this heat. Although we saw excellent racing from Syracuse in the varsity 8, so we'll be keeping an eye on them as well. Yale finished 7th in this event last year, and Boston finished 6th. Yale comes in with the 4th seed, Boston with the 5th seed, and these crews are off in their starting sequence and out of the gate. Clean starts all around. Looks like a fair start. And all of these crews now moving out ahead. A nice start from Cornell, from Boston, from Yale. I'd say Yale looking to be our leading crew here in these early moments of this Heat 4. With Boston in lane 4 getting work done as well. I'd say it's Boston and Yale now starting to separate from the rest of the field. Tight racing between Boston and Yale. A little too tough to tell from this angle exactly who's ahead. And these two now starting to separate from the rest of the field. It is Boston, it is Yale looking to solidify those top 2 positions to advance. And I'd say Yale now starting to make a move on Boston University. And we'll hand it over to the launch for the middle 1,000.
Yale in the lead, Boston University overstroking them by a couple of beats, but those two have pulled away from the rest of the field. It's now 1 length from Boston University back to Syracuse, another few seats back to Columbia, probably 3 seats to Columbia. Yale and St. Joseph's about level, a deck length behind Columbia. So 700 meters gone now. Yale begins to move away slightly. That lead is up to 3/4 of a length over BU, but we see a tiny bit of open water now for the first time between BU and Syracuse. Syracuse with half a length over St. Joseph's and Columbia. St. Joe's made a little surge over lane 1, and then half a length further back to Drexel. The Yale coxswain now is perched on the bow of BU. Yale looking very comfortable, very sustainable rhythm there. And they continue to ease out, and as they cross the 1,000, it's just about 1 full length exactly from Yale to Boston University. Then it's a few feet of open water back to Syracuse. Columbia pushed back into 4th place. They're moving slightly on Syracuse, but they're still a half a length behind the orange. Then it's about 3/4 of a length back to St. Joseph's and Drexel. Yale, now for the first time, a little bit of open water there. So it's 4 feet of open water from Yale back to BU. BU's open water over Syracuse has grown to about 1/4 of a length. And Columbia begins to come back on Syracuse. They continue that comeback, rather, because they've been nosing back up there for about 300, 400 meters now. It's about a deck from Syracuse to Columbia, but both of those crews still losing ground to Boston University, who now has nearly half a length of open water, to a 1/3 of a length of open water. Syracuse, they've taken it up. It's now or never with 650 meters to go, 2 qualifying positions. They're very comfortable in something.
And these crews now moving into the last 500 meters, an exciting heat. This is the 4th heat of the men's 2nd Varsity 8, with Yale open water lead over BU, who sits in 2nd place. Of course, Yale and BU have raced each other already this season. At the Eastern Spritz Regatta, Yale finished 2nd with BU in 3rd, and that was a very tight race between those 2 crews. So they've certainly lined up against each other before. Right now, though, Yale looking long, clean, and comfortable as they come through the last 300 meters or so of this race. We'll see what everyone gets up to in the last 300, 250 meters or so. But it's looking to be Yale with Boston University in second. Keeping an eye on Syracuse and Columbia, who are in lanes 2 and 5. But right now, all eyes on Yale as they cruise through the last 20 or 30 strokes of this race with a solid lead over second place Boston University. Again, our second and third place finishers at the Eastern Sprints Championship. But it is Yale looking long, clean, clearly in command of this race. Almost an open water lead. Yes, open water lead over second place Boston University, which means these two crews will skip the reps and head straight to the semis this afternoon, with third place Syracuse now coming through the line, fourth place Columbia, with St. Joe's now crossing through just behind Drexel in lane 6. So it's Yale, Boston, Harvard, Princeton, Cal, Northeastern, Washington, and Brown that will advance straight to the semifinals. And the rest of these crews we'll see this afternoon.
Okay, so that wraps up the men's second varsity 8s heats. The 8 qualifying crews to move into the semifinals that will happen tomorrow are Washington, Brown, Northeastern, California, Princeton, Harvard, Yale, and Boston University. And those 4 will be joined by the 4 winners from the repechage for the second varsity that will happen later this afternoon. So we'll have some good competition in those races for the final qualifying spots into the AB semifinals. And coming up next, we got the men's third varsity 8. So with the removal of the freshman 8 event, you get a lot of the younger athletes racing in the third varsity 8. Should see very good high quality racing on the third level from all of these crews. So some of the crews are locked onto the starting platform right now. We'll be out with the third varsity start here very soon. So in heat number 1 for the men's third varsity 8, in lane 1 we got St. Joe's University from Philadelphia. In the lane 2, the Naval Academy. Lane 3, Washington. Lane 4, Northeastern. And in lane 5, Stanford. So Washington comes in as the number 1 seed in the third varsity 8. They were the winners of the Pac-12 championship over California. And in the winner of the third varsity 8 at the Eastern Sprints was the Harvard crew, who was ahead of Yale and Princeton, who were the other medalists in the third varsity at sprints this year. Last year, the 2016 national champions in the third varsity event was Princeton, who finished in a time of 5:54.9. Looks like we are underway on this first heat of the third varsity, and it looks like Navy giving a good fight to Washington and Northeastern right now. So those three are the three in the lead. Washington with a half a deck over the crew from the Naval Academy right now. So Northeastern in the third position. We got 2 crews moving on to the semifinals. So Washington ahead of Navy right now, who's ahead of Northeastern. So Northeastern comes in as the 8 seed and Navy as the 9 seed, so we can expect a very tight race from those two. Northeastern was the 6th place finisher in the sprints grand final, and Navy was the winner of the petite final, so finishing in 6th and 7th position at sprints. So should be head-to-head good competition between these two. But right now it's the University of Washington out in the lead ahead of the Naval Academy, who's just barely ahead of Northeastern. So you can see very good power coming from the Washington crew, good blade work coming from all 3 of these lead crews right now as they get through the first 500 meters. So we've separated the field out a little bit. The top 3 crews have a little open water ahead of 4th and 5th place right now. But it looks like Washington is trying to secure their spot into the semifinals, with Navy and Northeastern battling to take that 2nd spot. And St. Joe's and Stanford have just fallen off the lead in the 4th and 5th position. But right now, it looks like the Naval Academy is trying to assert themselves over Northeastern. So good racing here between the Huskies from Northeastern and the Naval Academy, with Washington in the lead, but not quite getting out to that length lead early in the race that we've seen some of the other Husky crews do today. So the Washington boat rowing very nice, getting good length, good compression, trying to stretch out that lead over the Naval Academy right now. So the view from the shoreline looking down, we back into the drone, and it looks like Washington with Navy just behind them, Northeastern in that 3rd spot, but 2 boats to qualify. And let's head out to the launch. Oh, not going out to the launch, though. Let's check out where we are here. About 1,000 meters in, it looks like Washington's controlling that lead. Good ratio, good rhythm coming from the Huskies, with Navy and Northeastern in the next 2 spots here. And one of those 2 crews will be going through to the semifinals. So Washington back down here at Lake Natoma just a few weeks back at the Pac-12 Championships, part of the Huskies that were in the top finishing position at the Pac-12s, finishing in 5:45.0 ahead of California by about 2.5 seconds. So let's head out to the launch really quick and get the view from on the water.
Academy now with nearly length over Northeastern. It looks like Washington easing out. It's now 8 seats. Washington over Navy. You can see the boat much more back in the advantage. 500 to go. It's 1 length for Northeastern to make up on Navy. Want to move through to semis.
Okay, so in the final 500 meters now, it looks like Washington in that solid qualifying position. Navy just behind them, with Navy and Northeastern fighting for that second spot, with Stanford and St. Joe's in the 4th and 5th position in this race. So the third varsity first heat, Washington is your leader right now. Northeastern pressing on Navy to try to reach for that second qualifying spot and skip this afternoon's repechage race. So Washington with a clear lead, staying calm, staying under control, not really necessary to push for a sprint here from the Huskies. Washington looking with just about a 6-seat lead or so. A 6-seat lead or so over the Naval Academy. Navy giving a good push ahead of Northeastern here. So your two qualifiers moving on to the semifinals. The Huskies from the University of Washington and the Naval Academy. Northeastern finishing in a solid third position ahead of Stanford and St. Joe's here, with St. Joe's coming up along the shore trying to push that Stanford crew for the 4th position. And it looks very close between the two, Stanford and St. Joe's for 4th and 5th. We'll have to come back and check the result of that one. So we'll be back shortly with the results from this first heat of the men's third varsity 8, but Washington and Navy look like your two crews that will be moving on to the semifinals tomorrow. The other remaining crews will move on to the repechage this afternoon. Up next, we got the second heat of the men's third varsity 8 with Drexel in lane 1, Boston University in 2, Harvard in 3, Wisconsin in 4, and George Washington in lane 5. So following the men's third varsity 8s, we'll have the heats running for the men's varsity 4s. So you'll see a lot of the same crews, a lot of the teammates from the crews that have been racing this morning, as well as some crews that have only brought a varsity 4 to the regatta. So it should be some very good racing in the varsity 4s events. Right now the third varsities are running. We have the unofficial results from Heat 1 of the men's third varsity 8, with Washington coming away as your winner in 5:47.4, ahead of the Naval Academy at 5:49.4, Northeastern in 5:52.5, St. Joe's in 6:07.2, and Stanford in 6:07.25. So the difference between St. Joe's and Stanford is very small. St. Joe's in a 7.24 and Stanford in 7.25. So 100th of a second separating those two. So good racing from Washington. Great race from the Naval Academy in that third varsity heat. The third varsity repechages will run this afternoon at 3:20 and 3:30 to get two more qualifiers for the semifinals. So coming up next in the third varsity, heat number 2, Drexel, Boston, Harvard, Wisconsin, and George Washington University. Harvard is in lane 3 in the middle of the course. Harvard is the number 2 seed coming into the championships here, with Wisconsin as the 7th seed, Boston University as the 10th seed. So last year, Harvard was the silver medalist at the IRA in this third varsity event, behind Princeton, just ahead of Washington. And Wisconsin was the winner of the petite final last year at the 2016 IRAs. Harvard was your Eastern Sprints winner this year in the third varsity 8, ahead of Yale. And Wisconsin, who's in this next heat, was the 5th place crew, just behind Brown and a little ahead of Northeastern. Finishing in 5th were the Badgers. So the view from the start here, you can look across at the shore, the crew closest to the shore in lane 1, Drexel University, one of the qualifiers out of the Dadvale Regatta. Boston University in lane 2, Harvard in 3, Wisconsin in 4, and George Washington out in lane 5. So we have a 5-boat heat. This third Varsity 8, we have 4 5-boat heats with the first and second place moving on to the semifinals. We are on the start of Heat 2 of the men's third Varsity 8 right now, and the high seed Harvard looks to be nudging out right there with Boston University, going right with them. Wisconsin just trailing, maybe losing a seat off the start, a seat or 2 off the start to Harvard and Boston. George Washington staying pretty close with Wisconsin, as is Drexel right now. So the crews have mixed things up a little bit. You've got some guys moving from freshman 8s into these third varsity crews. Some of the crews have been rowing intact third varsity crews all season. Others have been switching the lineups leading up to the IRA National Championships here. So Harvard with a very good start now, separating out, getting about a half a length lead here in the early going, with Boston University ahead of Wisconsin. So right now it's Boston and Harvard, the 2 crews from Boston, going for those 2 semifinal spots. Wisconsin falling back off of Boston, the 2 in the lead. Right now we have Harvard and Boston, and we'll head out to the launch. Okay, so the view from the launch, we're trying to work out the audio a little bit, but right now it looks like a clear lead from Harvard with Boston University pressing them. You can see the Harvard coxswain sitting on about the Boston University 2 seat. Good strength coming from the Harvard crew. You can see
a length approaching the 500, and they've increased their lead to about 3/4 of a length over Boston University. BU looking pretty controlled, trying to chip back into that Harvard lead here in this second 500, around 7:50 in. Coxon from BU looking over her shoulder, still has open water over Wisconsin. Wisconsin open water over GW, and Drexel trailing over in lane 1. So can the Terriers chip into the Crimson lead here at the 1,000-meter mark? We'll see who takes a move, if anybody pushes the gas down. Those 2 comfortably in qualifying positions. And we'll see if the Terriers can come back on Harvard here. Harvard looking pretty long in the stroke, very comfortable. And they're beginning to inch out just a little bit on Boston. Boston looks a little tighter, a little bit shorter, but they're still in that strong qualifying position. Quarter length open now over Wisconsin. Wisconsin a full length up over GW, and then trailing back is Drexel. Now Boston's come back just a little bit on Harvard here. Bauman on Coxon in the third 500 here. So it's seesawing back and forth as Boston tries to cut into that Harvard lead. Wisconsin really haven't seen much. They got off the blocks a little slow and just never really got into a rhythm and got into that contact position with the other 2 crews, the leaders, Harvard and Boston University. So Wisconsin paying the price now for coming off the line a little bit too lethargically. Going into the last 500, Harvard looks like they're going to take it up just a little bit here. Boston University holding on to that second spot, overlapped with Harvard. Open water ahead of Wisconsin. Wisconsin open water ahead of GW. and Drexel trailing. Over to the finish.
Okay, so you have your leader, Harvard, ahead of Boston University, ahead of Wisconsin, with George Washington and Drexel rounding out the field. And Harvard doing a nice job just staying steady in front of the Boston University crew, who's given them a little bit of a throw every now and then, a little challenge to the Harvard lead. But Boston seems to have been rowing a pretty consistent rate, pretty comfortable in their qualifying position as well, alongside the Harvard crew. So Wisconsin trailing with George Washington and Drexel as well. But Harvard with a clear lead, a clear qualifying spot for into the semifinals. Boston University looking fairly comfortable as well, staying long, not really shifting the rate up to the sprint. Alongside Harvard, it looks like these two are pretty content to row this one out, and Harvard being the leader with Boston University being second. Wisconsin in third, George Washington fourth. And here comes Harvard to the line with a little bit of press coming from Boston. Harvard is first, Boston second. Wisconsin coming up in the third position with George Washington overlapping Wisconsin through the finish line. And Drexel on the shore side lane finishing up the race. So we have heat number 2 complete. Harvard was your winner. Boston University finishing second in the 2 qualifying spots. And Drexel crossing the line now in the 5th position. So the 3 crews will be moving on to this afternoon's repechage with the 2 crews that were the leaders moving on to the semifinals tomorrow. So good racing from Harvard and good racing from Boston University there. Good start from both crews, maintained their lead, established it, and held their position through to move on to tomorrow's semifinals. So coming up soon in heat number 3 of the men's third varsity 8, we have UC San Diego in lane 1, Cornell in lane 2, California in 3, Brown in lane 4, and Oregon State in lane 5. So California was your second place finisher at the Pac-12 Championships, and Oregon State finished third in those same championships. Brown was your 4th place crew at sprints, and Cornell finished in 9th, just barely squeaking out a lead ahead of Syracuse at sprints. So we'll get back to you with the results now of heat number 2 of the men's third varsity 8. The winner, Harvard, 5:49.5, Boston University 5:50.9, Wisconsin finishing in 6 minutes with 0.9 seconds, and George Washington 6:03.9, and Drexel 6:24.2. So that was heat number 2 of the men's third varsity 8. We'll be back up to the start for heat number 3 of the men's third varsity 8 coming up soon. Okay, while we move up to the start and get ready for this heat number 3 of the men's third varsity 8, we'll be running 2 more heats of the men's third varsity 8, followed by 4 heats of the men's varsity 4, with 5 boat races in 3 of those heats and a 6-boat race in heat number 4 for the men's varsity 4. We'll be following those up with heats from the lightweight 4s, both the lightweight Cox 4s and 2 heats of the lightweight straight 4s. So some good action to finish up the morning session of the 2017 IRA National Championship. And again, be sure to check out IRA Rowing Champs on Twitter to follow, get pretty close to immediate race results. All results on the Twitter feed are unofficial. Check the official results on the web page or on the bulletin board here near the finish line. Heat number 3 coming up for the men's third varsity 8. We got lane number 1, UC San Diego. Cornell in lane 2, California in lane 3, Brown in lane 4, and Oregon State in lane 5. So again, 2 boats move on to the semifinals. The remainder move to the repechage that will happen this afternoon at 3:20 and 3:30. So can expect a very strong race from the crew from California. California's freshmen had a great race at the Pac-12 Championships, but no freshman race here. So some of those freshmen have moved into the California third varsity 8, and most likely the California third varsity has picked up a little bit of speed with the addition of some of those athletes. Brown is your 6th seed in the 3V race. Cornell is the 11 seed. Oregon State is the 14 seed, and UC San Diego is the 19th seed. So we are expecting a good race to get underway here any minute now for the third heat of the men's third varsity 8. Last year, California was the 5th place finisher in the third varsity race at the IRA Championships, and Brown was the 4th place finisher in the third varsity race. So expecting another good challenge coming from both of these crews, the crew from California and the crew from Brown University. So we're getting alignment here. You can see just every now and then a couple of it looks to be the 2 seats of the Cornell crew and the California crew kicking their bow around, maybe just a slight breeze. Coxswain's having to keep their position locked in to the stake boat, get their bow pointed straight down on the line that they want to take down the whole 2,000 meter race course. Still, we are looking at barely any wind. Very, very good conditions here at Lake Natoma today. Temperatures in the 60s now, but moving up into the low 90s this afternoon. So those repechages, it'll be a lot hotter for the afternoon races. So one of the goals of these crews in the heats is to move on to the semifinals. Avoid racing that extra race on this first day of the regatta. So all 5 crews are locked in. We're still waiting for our alignment, waiting for the call of the start. Looks like we have a little bit of wake from one of the launches moving through across the course, so that may be causing a little delay here on the start. And here we go. Now we have a start to Heat 3 of the men's third varsity 8. We got in the middle there, University of California, Berkeley. On their sides, Brown and Cornell. On the outer edge, Oregon State and UC San Diego. So Cal is third varsity 8, out like a shot off the line. Very quick, very aggressive, taking seats already on the crews from Cornell and Brown. So Cornell looks to be your 2nd place crew in the early going. Brown, UC San Diego, and Oregon State are your trailing crews. But California looks to have established their half-length lead here before they've even hit their settle. So very strong, very aggressive start from the Bears, with Cornell hanging right with them now. Brown in that 3rd or 4th position here with UC San Diego and Oregon State. So California out to a very strong lead early on in the race here. Looks to be getting nearly Coxswain on the bow ball of the Cornell crew. And let's go ahead and head out to Bob and Fred in the launch.
500 meters with a 3/4 of a length lead over Cornell. Those two got out of the blocks very, very well. It's in third place, about almost a length behind Cornell would be UC San Diego. They have a deck on Brown, and Brown has about half a length on Oregon State. The California Coxswain is now up on the Cornell bow ball. So it's California, 650 meters in. Moving away, they've got now just about one length over Cornell. They're overstroking Cornell by about a beat and a half, and that's one length from first to second. It's Brown that has now moved into third, but they've got nearly a full length to make up on Cornell if they want to get into that qualifying position. It's now 3/4 of a length from Brown back to Oregon State, and then another 3/4 of a length back to UC San Diego. As we approach the 1,000, California still rowing pretty high, has about 5 feet of open water now over Cornell. They're still rowing about 2 or 3 beats higher than Cornell. And so far it's paying off as they lead by now about a 1/4 length of open water. It's Cornell rowing low and controlled, but they're still controlling second place as they edge away from Brown. It's now about a 1/4 length of open water from Cornell back to Brown. Brown now with just about a length over Oregon State, and then a little open water further back to UC San Diego.
And California thinks this is the final.
And California is rowing this high and hard. California is really putting a show on here. In this third 500, they've opened up to nearly half a length of open water over Cornell. Cornell still with open water over Brown. Brown now with a length over Oregon State. So this is turning into a bit of a parade. You can hear the cowboat, some yips of encouragement to one another as they hold on to this substantial lead. Cornell looking relatively unbothered though. They are holding on to second place with a minimum output, it looks like. They're rowing very controlled. Now with 600 to go, they might have nudged it up a bit. So it's Cal by open water over Cornell at 500 meters. Then a little open water back to Brown. Open water again to Oregon State, and open water again to UC San Diego. Turning you over to the finish.
And heat number 3 of the men's third varsity 8. So California is your leader. Cornell doing a nice job running in that second qualifying position. Brown in third right now, with Oregon State and UC San Diego, the two trailing crews. So California, your leader, rowing very comfortable, stretching out the stroke right now, not lifting the rate. California rowing very long, very controlled here in that first qualifying position. Cornell in the second qualifying position, comfortably ahead of Brown. Brown, Oregon State, and UC San Diego looking like the crews that will be heading to the repechage this afternoon. So California stretching out, nice and long, clean, easy, making it look easy. The Bears from Berkeley rowing away with this heat of the men's third varsity 8. So California, open water lead ahead of Cornell. Cornell, open water ahead of Brown. Brown with that open water lead ahead of Oregon State, and Oregon State ahead of UC San Diego. It's California crossing the line first. The Cornell third varsity finishing in the second qualifying position, moving into the semifinals. Brown finishing in third. The Beavers from Oregon State finishing in the fourth position. And UC San Diego finishing out this third heat of the men's third varsity 8. and UC San Diego through the line. So heat number 3 of the men's third varsity 8, our two that move on are Cornell and the University of California. Brown, Oregon State, and UC San Diego will be racing in the repechage this afternoon at either 3:20 or 3:30. So another race for those young men today to move possibly on to the semifinals tomorrow to make it into the grand final or the petite final. So heat number 3 is complete. We're moving on to heat number 4 coming up for the men's third varsity 8. Coming up shortly, we'll get back to you with the unofficial results of heat number 3 and get you the starting lane assignments for heat number 4. So a good aggressive start by the California Bears off of the start of that third heat. It was California coming away your winner with Cornell with an upset of Brown coming in second to qualify. So our next race coming up, the fourth heat of the third varsity, we'll have Santa Clara in lane 1, Syracuse in lane 2, Yale in lane 3, Princeton in lane 5, and Princeton in lane 4 and Dartmouth in lane 5. And Princeton was your 2016 third varsity 8 IRA champions. And it looks like we now have a start on heat number 4. So heat number 4 here, we got Yale in the middle, surrounded with Princeton on one side, Syracuse on the other, Santa Clara in lane 1 closest to the shore, and Dartmouth on the far side. So heat number 4 is off, and it looks like we have a very tight race between lane 3 and lane 4 right now. So lane 3 Yale, lane 4 Princeton. The two crews taking the lead. It looks like Princeton just edging out ahead of the Bulldogs. And Dartmouth sticking in there with Princeton pretty well. Dartmouth maybe losing 3 to 4 seats right now. But Yale and Harvard stroke for stroke, or Yale and Princeton stroke for stroke here through the first 500 meters. So Yale now kind of getting a little bit of a move as they shift down in their rate, and Yale taking seats on Princeton now. Clearly Yale in first, Princeton in second, Dartmouth in third, with Syracuse running fourth and Santa Clara in fifth. So Yale making a good move as they shifted down to their base pace. They come off their high strokes, they make a strong settle shift into their base rhythm. Yale seems to be doing a very nice job with that base rhythm. Let's go out to the launch and see the call from Fred and Bob.
Running pretty level, maybe give an advantage to the Orangemen. But Yale's down, thumping it around 36. And looked pretty long in the box. Nice rhythm. Trying to get a little bit more over the Tigers. Tigers maybe a beat higher than Yale. Princeton with their bucket here on the starboard side at 4 and 5. And Dartmouth now looks like they're in third, trying to get back into Princeton a bit. Yale 6 or 7 seats over the Tigers in the second 500. Princeton almost a length on Dartmouth. Dartmouth about 2 or 3 seats over Syracuse. And then back to Santa Clara in lane 1. Yale's taking a press now here just before the 1,000 and has Coxon on the bow of the Tigers as they go through the 1,000 here. So Yale almost a length. Princeton Stroke taking a look over his shoulder, but he's got to look around pretty far. Now Princeton's taking a press, and they're trying to put a little more power on to bring it up and get back in contention with Yale, and they have. They brought it up a couple of seats just in the last 10 strokes. And Dartmouth hit that stroke from Dartmouth, taking a look over his shoulder, saying, how far is Princeton out of reach? Can we get them? So Princeton clearly in that second advancing spot. Bow on 7 of Yale. And I just don't see how Dartmouth or Syracuse can make up the water to challenge Princeton. Princeton's rode a little bit higher all the way down the track. Yale pretty much in control there. That's a good-looking 3V for Yale. Really in control. Good horizontal step and drive. As we approach the 1,500 meter mark, nothing's changed. Princeton still overlapped with Yale. Those two open water ahead of Dartmouth. Dartmouth holding off Syracuse, and then over to Santa Clara. Several open water back. So over to the tower. It's a Prince make up some ground on Yale, but
All right, so we got Yale as your leader, Princeton just behind them. Those two are looking for the qualifying spots for this final heat of the men's third varsity. So those two are looking to join California, Harvard, Washington, Navy, Boston University, and Cornell into the semifinals tomorrow for this third varsity 8. So Yale rowing very strong, very calm, confident rowing right now, coming from the Yale crew. Princeton striking just a little higher than them, but right there behind them in the qualifying spot. So it looks like Yale and Princeton getting ready to move on to the semifinals. And Dartmouth, Syracuse, and Santa Clara will be rowing in this afternoon's repechage. So Yale stretching out, keeping good traction, good placement, really just trying to get through the line clean, get through the line smooth. The conditions are optimal for great rowing here today. So Yale is your leader in heat number 4 of the third varsity. Princeton not quite a length behind. And it looks like Dartmouth just going to nip Syracuse at the line for the third position. Third place is Dartmouth, fourth is Syracuse, and Santa Clara coming to finish up this heat. So checking back on the third varsity heat number 3, we didn't go through the times, but California finished first in 5:48.8, Cornell 5:55.3, Brown 6:01.4, Oregon State 6:10.6, and UC San Diego in 6:28. So that was heat number 3. Heat number 4 just wrapping up with Santa Clara finishing up for the field. So the winner there was Yale over Princeton, with Dartmouth just ahead of Syracuse and Santa Clara rounding out that fourth heat of the third varsity. So in the next set of races we'll be moving on to is the men's heavyweight varsity 4s. So we have 4 heats of varsity 4s, crews that have elected to come to the IRA Regatta here in Rancho Cordova this year. So in first heat of the men's varsity 4, you'll see Boston University in lane 1, Dartmouth in 2, Marist in lane 3, Navy in lane 4, and Brown in lane 5. Keep me on for just a second. I'll tell the times and then I'll go off. All right, and so the men's third varsity 8 final heat of The heavyweight eights for the day. The men's third varsity, fourth heat. Yale was your winner, 547.2, followed by Princeton, 550.2. Dartmouth in third, 554.8, with Syracuse just behind them in 555.5. Santa Clara finishing up in 620.1. So that's the final race of the eights for the morning. We move on to a series of fours races. So pretty exciting set of races coming up here for the men's varsity fours heats. A little bit more unknown in terms of seeding. So these crews are not seeded by the coaches. It's a random selection of lane assignments. And so we have in heat number 1 of the men's varsity 4, you have Boston University in lane 1, Dartmouth in 2, Marist in 3, the Naval Academy in 4, and Brown in lane 5. And we'll be back shortly for the start of the heat number 1 of the men's varsity 4 of the 2017 IRA National Championships. Okay, welcome back. Here we go. We got the first heat of the men's varsity fours coming up. In lane 1, we have Boston University. In lane 2, Dartmouth. In lane 3, Marist. In lane 4, Navy. And in lane 5, Brown. So, as we said, these are unseeded, so random assignments of lanes for these heats, and things that changed from the heats that you saw this morning in all of the seeded 8-man events. With these fours, only one boat from the heats will go on to the semifinals, and then 2 boats from each of the repechage this afternoon will move on to the semifinals. So only the winner from the heats right now is going to go through to the semifinal. So we're underway in heat number 1, and we got our 5-boat race right now. And early going here, it looks like the Naval Academy and Dartmouth are just pressing out. You can see them just ahead of the Marist crew in the middle there, with Brown out on the far side and Boston University in lane 1. So looking at the screen, Boston University is the boat on the upper side of the screen. Moving down across the course, we got Dartmouth, Marist, Navy, and Brown. So right now, looks like the Naval Academy guys have got the lead. We'll switch over to the launch to get the middle 1,000. Okay, so we got the side view from the shore, or from the launch here, and it looks like the Naval Academy is pushing out. You can see the 2 bows of lane 1 and 2 in the picture as well, with lane 3, Marist, just a little bit behind, bow ball on about the foot stretchers of the Naval Academy crew. So we got 4 boats overlapping. Only the winner goes on to the semifinals, and right now the Naval Academy looks to be in the lead. Let's go ahead and switch it out to the launch now.
Then it's just a deck back from them to Dartmouth, and maybe a foot back from Dartmouth to Marist. 3/4 of a length behind Marist, we've got Brown. It's Marist now moving past Dartmouth and closing in on BU. It's 3/4 of a length for Navy over BU. It's Marist closing to within a deck of BU. It's then another deck back to Dartmouth and 3/4 of a length further back to Brown. So it's 7:50. It's Navy with a clear lead, not quite a length, over Boston University. Boston University, a deck over Marist. Marist, a half a length over Dartmouth, and then another half a length back to Brown. It's Navy now with just about a length lead over Boston University. BU has dug in and stopped the Marist move. It's now a half a length, maybe a touch more, from BU back to Marist. And it looks like Dartmouth and Brown are starting to close back in on the Red Foxes. So it's Navy now, not quite a length at the 1,000, just maybe a foot or so of overlap with BU. BU now with 3/4 of a length over Marist. Marist with 1/2 a length over Dartmouth. Dartmouth just about level with Brown. So pretty close competitive field with two to advance to the semifinals. BU still hanging on. Navy can't quite get that extra nudge to open water on them. It's within a foot or 2, but it's been that way for about 300 meters. BU now nearly a length ahead of Marist. The field's starting to spread out just a bit, with BU almost a length over Marist, and Marist with 3/4 of a length over Brown, with Dartmouth now a little bit behind Brown. BU starts to close. BU, it was almost a length. Now it's back to the bow ball on the stroke seat of the Navy crew. That has taken them to a touch of open water over Marist, who looked like they were going to be run down by Dartmouth and Brown, but they have regained their composure and are solidly in 3rd place. Navy responds. Navy begins to move out again at 600 meters to go over BU. They've gone back to that not quite a length lead. BU with 1 length over the all-important 2-3 spot over Marist. Brown starting to close on Marist again, but with 500 meters to go, it's Navy leading BU to the finish line with 2 to advance in the men's Varsity 4.
Okay, so looks like Navy is moving from that into that qualifying position to move on to the semifinals tomorrow. So Boston University threw in some challenges in the middle 1,000 there. You could see them kind of push into that Navy lead, moved up about a deck, and then Navy kind of responded, moved back out, and took the lead back. So in the last 500 meters now, the Naval Academy crew rowing very nicely, good control like we've seen from a lot of the leaders. You got to just watch the crews behind you, control what you're doing, maintain your position. That's the priority number 1 for the Naval Academy. And Boston University on the shore side here, their challenge right now is to make up ground on that Naval Academy crew. And only 1 crew through to the semifinals, and the remainder will move on to this afternoon's reps, with the reps happening for these Varsity 4s at 3:40 this afternoon. So in the heat of the day, if you win, you avoid that having to throw down a 2K in 90-degree weather. So the Naval Academy looking like they're going to take this one, with Boston University and Marist right behind them. So Brown on the outside, Marist in the middle in the red tops, and Boston University on the shore side putting up a challenge with that Naval Academy crew. So Navy looking like they're going to take it and be moving on to the semifinals, and a really close race here between the other 3, with Boston, Marist, and Brown in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th position, and Dartmouth closing out the field in 5th. So a good race from the Naval Academy, could control, got the start, held their position all the way through, responded to Boston University's challenges in the middle 1,000 meters, and they will be moving on to the semifinals tomorrow. So those men's varsity semifinals will be running, Varsity 4 semifinals will be running at 11:35 tomorrow, but the rest of the field will be moving on to this afternoon's reps. And in our second heat for the men's Varsity 4, we'll have Colgate in lane 1, California in 2, Princeton in 3, Drexel in 4, and Oregon State in lane 5. So tomorrow morning, Saturday morning races get started pretty early at 8:30 tomorrow morning. We'll start day 2 of the 2017 Intercollegiate Rowing Association National Championships, and we'll start off with a race for lanes, a qualifying heat for the women's lightweight double. So 6 boats in that, and that race will determine the lanes for the grand final of the women's lightweight double. So it's your only chance to see sculling here at the National Championships. They'll be following that up with the women's lightweight 8s. The heats for the women's lightweight 8s will begin at 8:40 tomorrow morning, followed by the women's lightweight 4s, and then we get into some very hot races tomorrow. Coming at 9:25 and 9:35 will be the AB semifinals for the men's varsity 8, and anyone who's been at the IRA before knows that those varsity semifinals, the semifinals throughout the whole day, are always great racing, very close finishes, trying to get into that AB or then into that grand final for Sunday. So come back out tomorrow for the semifinal day of the IRA National Championships. So in heat number 1 of the men's varsity 4, the winner was the Naval Academy in 6:30.9. Boston University finishing second in 6:34.3. Marist in 6:35.1, Brown in 6:35.6, and Dartmouth finishing out the field in 6:42.6. So heat number 2 coming up next. We got Colgate in lane 1, California in 2, Princeton in 3, Drexel in 4, and Oregon State in lane 5. So the view from the drone right now, lane 1 is furthest from the drone, closest to the shore. That is Colgate in lane 1 with California in 2. So make sure that you're following along on Twitter at IRA Rowing Champs. You can get almost immediate updated results. Unofficial, of course. You can find the official results online or on the bulletin board near the finish line of the race course. So a 5-boat heat here in heat number 2 of the men's Varsity 4 will be getting underway shortly. It looks like all crews are locked on, and we have a start to the second heat of the men's Varsity 4. So we can expect some very good racing from these crews. It looks like what we've seen all day from Berkeley is California getting out to an early lead, taking a deck in the first 10 strokes. So California getting out to the early lead here. California over Colgate, Princeton, Drexel, and Oregon State in lane 5. So you can see the California crew in lane 2 out to a strong start, looking like they got a very good, strong traction off the catch, taking the lead, and it looks like California's stroke seat is almost up to the bow ball of the Colgate crew and the crew from Princeton. So California clearly in control in the early going. Remember, we only have one crew qualifying from the heat of the Varsity 4. The remaining crews will move on to this afternoon's repechage, where 2 crews from the reps will move into the semifinals. So to get to the semifinals this morning, you've got to be the winner of this heat. So we have Oregon State in lane 5 just pushing up on Drexel in lane 4. Good race there between 4th and 5th place, Drexel and Oregon State right now. Colgate in lane 1 and Princeton out in lane 3 are trying their best to get back into Cal's early lead here. It looks like Cal doesn't quite have open water yet over Princeton and Colgate. So a very good race going on between Princeton and Colgate, though, with California holding that early lead, maintaining their position. That's their priority, is get to the finish line first, maintain that spot to move directly into the semifinals.
In lanes 5, 4, and 5. So Princeton's trying to make a push here against Colgate. California has a full length in this second 500, running about 35.5 strokes a minute for the Bears as they continue to press and draw away. Now Princeton's overtaken Colgate. The orange cap of the Princeton coxswain poking out from the bow loader of this Empacher. And they are just about a half a deck ahead of Colgate. 34.5, 35 for the Tigers. Now they have a little bit more. So just a little more base speed for the Tigers as California starts to thump it away. Oregon State now has come up and passed Drexel, and they have a length on Drexel, who is trailing the field. 1,000 meters down, it's California. Princeton beginning to assert themselves over Colgate, half a length or a little bit less. And we'll see. It looks like the Tigers are taking a push here, and they're beginning to pick up some boat speed as they collectively take a 10 here. So they've opened up a good half a length over Colgate right there at the 1,000. In fact, they're coming back just a touch on Yale. California races here often at Natoma. They're used to this course, and it looks very comfortable to them as they continue to have an open water lead over Princeton. Now Princeton has almost a length over Colgate. Colgate has open water over Oregon State. Oregon State has a length and a half, or a length open, I should say, over Drexel. So all the pack is stretching out now, unlike the previous heat, which was much closer for the first 1,000 meters. This race has really opened up in the second or third 500, with Cal, Princeton, Colgate, Oregon State all having a length on their next competitor. So we'll get ready to pass it off to the tower. As you can, they'll watch on the screen there. These crews are well spread out. The only question remaining is if Princeton can close slightly on Yale. Cal, sorry. Looking a little bit dark over there. It's the California Bear.
California is your leader. California coming away, looking in the last 500 meters, separated themselves from the field. Princeton is in the second position, but out of the qualifying for the semifinals. So California's job right now in this last 500 meters is maintain that position, hold on to it, row with good rhythm, good composure. So we got Princeton in the second place, Colgate running in third, Oregon State running in fourth, and Drexel running in fifth position. So California in the last 250 meters now into the red buoys. You can see they're just rowing with good composure, good strength, just stretching out, staying composed, bucket in the middle of the boat, so 2 oars on the same side in 2-seat and 3-seat. So California is your leader here, moving on into the semifinals, it looks like, and the remainder of the field will be moving into the reps, where 2 crews from each of the reps will be moving into the semifinals to join California. So California Golden Bears in the last 10 strokes of the race now. Princeton just behind them. Colgate in third, Oregon State in fourth, and Drexel in fifth. So California crossing the line first. Princeton over the line in second. And the crew from Colgate finishing in third here in this heat. And out in lane 5, Oregon State finishing in fourth position. And finishing out this field for this heat, Drexel is finishing. So we'll get back with the unofficial results of heat number 2 of the men's varsity 4 and return out to the starting platform for the drone view of heat number 3 of the men's varsity 4. So good view from the sky looking in on the starting platform right now. So again, perfect conditions that started to warm up. We're into the 80s here, looking to top out. And in the 90s, not much wind today. This morning it's been very nice. Not looking like we're going to get a whole lot of wind this afternoon either. So optimal conditions, very fair conditions for this afternoon's repechage. And we'll get the final result, or the unofficial results, to you pretty soon here. And just a reminder, 2 o'clock is the start of the first repechage race. So we have a break after the lightweight 4s until 2 o'clock. At 2 o'clock, you'll have the first rep of the men's varsity 8. And races running every 10 minutes there. Running through the varsity 8s, the second varsity 8s, 2 reps for the third varsity 8. And then finishing up the day with the men's varsity 4s. And we'll be starting tomorrow morning, nice and early at 8:30 for day 2 of the IRA National Championships. So in heat number 2 of the men's varsity 4, California was your winner, 628.9, Princeton 632.3, Colgate 641.4, Oregon State 648.7, and Drexel in 704.7. So that was completing heat number 2 of the varsity 4. So we'll be heading up to the start with lane number 1 in heat number 3, Wisconsin. Lane 2, Harvard. Lane 3, Washington. Lane 4, Pennsylvania. And out in lane 5, the crew from MIT. So the drone view here, you can see, pretty calm, very nice conditions. Nobody having to scull their bows around in any of these fours. All crews are locked on. We should be getting underway with heat number 3 here shortly. So we have this third heat of the men's varsity 4, one more heat following for heat number 4 of the varsity 4, and then we'll move into some lightweight 4s, which should be very good racing coming from the lightweight 4s. So we're off. Heat number 3 has a start. So heat number 3, Wisconsin, Harvard, Washington, Penn, and MIT running from the far shore there. Wisconsin in lane 1. Harvard in 2, Washington 3, and it looks like those 3 crews have got off to the quick start. So Washington nudging out into first with Wisconsin and Harvard just trailing them. MIT and Pennsylvania in 4th and 5th position right now. So the Huskies getting the early lead, again, like their counterparts from California, getting good traction, good beginning of the race. You can see they're really sending it, trying to get a nice strong start and separate from the field. But Wisconsin hanging right with Washington early on here. So both these crews doing a nice job here in the first 500 meters. Harvard sticking in that 3rd position. MIT just behind them in 4th with Penn in 5th. So Washington has your leader right now. I'm reminding you, just one crew moving on to the semifinals from this. The remainder moving to the repechage this afternoon. So the view from the drone, you're looking to see good matching, good clean catches from the crews. From above, you can see the catches, the timing of the crew. That's what we're looking for, nice and sharp from all 4 athletes. So Wisconsin running in second. Wisconsin's the only crew that's really putting a challenge to the Huskies right now, with Harvard, MIT, and Pennsylvania falling off just a little bit. So Huskies are out to the early lead, separating themselves, with Wisconsin running in second here. You can see from the side view, looks like the Huskies are almost up to the bow ball of the Badgers. Let's go out to the launch for the middle 1,000.
About 1 length over Harvard. From Harvard, it's about 2 seats back to MIT, and then 2 further back to Pennsylvania. Washington still in front by nearly a length now over Wisconsin. That burst right after 500 has carried them clear, and they are showing open water now, 750 meters into this race. Wisconsin still with just about 1 length over Harvard for that all-important 2nd place to transfer to the semis. And it looks like MIT and Penn closing in on Harvard a bit. It's Washington by 8 feet of open water over Wisconsin. Wisconsin by 5 feet of open water over Harvard. Harvard by 2 seats. 2 seats now over MIT, half a length back from MIT to Pennsylvania. At the 1,000, Washington now with a length of open water over Wisconsin. Sitting up tall, really putting those legs down hard early in the stroke. They are moving that boat very nicely. It looks like a little pressure now on Wisconsin from Harvard. That open water is being chopped into. I'd say it's now about a foot of open water from Wisconsin back to Harvard. Harvard with half a length on MIT, MIT 3/4 of a length on Pennsylvania. 800 to go. Wisconsin still holding second, but that's now 1 length over Harvard. Meanwhile, up front, Washington continues to pull away, looking quite happy about themselves, and so they should.
The 3-man looks like he could be drafted by the Cavaliers.
Yeah. my cohort here, Fred Schock, thinks that the three-man would fit right into the Cleveland Cavaliers lineup. He certainly seems to be a head taller than anyone else on this lake. It's about 3 lengths now for Washington. It's 1 length almost precisely for Wisconsin over Harvard. With 600 to go, it looks like the only question left is whether Harvard can make a last-ditch effort to catch Wisconsin for that second qualifying spot. So as we turn it over to the finish line, it's Harvard with 1 length precisely to make up and 500 meters to go.
Looking very strong, very confident in their rowing. So Washington is your leader right now. Wisconsin and Harvard running in second and third. MIT and Pennsylvania in fourth and fifth. So good race coming from the Huskies. Got that early lead. Nice separation in the second 500 and put it on in their move of crossing the 1,000 meters to take that open water lead ahead of Wisconsin. So Harvard is trying to challenge Wisconsin for that second spot, but still sitting about a length back. So right now we have the Huskies looking like they're going to be moving on into the semifinals, and the remaining crews will be moving to this afternoon's reps. So the University of Washington, again, as we've seen with some of these leaders who have open water leads as they come along the shore, they're just trying to maintain now. No reason to shift up, no reason to add rate to the equation. So they are just staying long, rowing with good power, good composure, keeping the boat moving well underneath them. Wisconsin being pressed just a little bit by Harvard here, with MIT running in the 4th position and Pennsylvania in 5th here. So Washington looking to be the ones to cross the line first with an open water lead ahead of Wisconsin, who is just about bow astern with Harvard. Harvard is putting a little bit of a move on, and Washington is across the line first. And here comes Wisconsin. Wisconsin in the 2nd position. Wisconsin over the line. Harvard in 3rd. And a little further back to MIT and Pennsylvania finishing out the field. So MIT over the line. And Pennsylvania in 5th. So we'll get back with the unofficial results of that race, but it looks like Washington will be moving on to the semifinals. So we have one more semifinal coming up for the men's varsity 4, or one more heat coming up for the varsity 4. And it looks like Washington, California, Navy into the semifinals so far. We'll have one more crew joining them from heat number 4. And in heat number 4, we have Columbia in lane 1, Fairfield in lane 2, Gonzaga in 3, Cornell in 4, Holy Cross in 5, and Marietta in lane 6. So we have the last heat of the varsity heavyweight varsity 4 coming up here. When following that up with 2 heats from the men's varsity lightweight 4s, and then 2 heats from the lightweight straight 4s. So we have 4 more races to complete the morning session after this last heat of the heavyweight 4s. And then back at 2 p.m. this afternoon, we'll be starting out rep for the varsity 8s. So in these reps for the varsity 8s, only one crew is moving forward from each of the 4 repechage races. So the Huskies running away with that heat in the varsity 4, and the Huskies finishing first in a time of 6:28.9. Wisconsin finishing second, 6:38.1. Harvard in third, 6:39.8. MIT in fourth, 6:53.5. And Penn, 6:58.5. We'll be heading out for the final race, final heat of the varsity 4s coming up shortly. is there only 3 in that rep? That doesn't make sense. That doesn't sound possible. Well, there's rep 1, rep 2, rep 3, rep 4. But there should be 4. There should be 4 in each of them. In each of those reps.
Oh, Northeastern. Yeah, another vote into the 7-vote semi. They won their protest.
Wait, what?
So Northeastern protested.
Who protested?
East, Northeastern. The Hickeys. I am unbiased right now. It's
So
okay.
wait, so what?
So the
I didn't hear
Northeastern
that.
and the Varsity. Oh yeah, that's why they were all up there. I'm
Oh, I didn't hear
chatting
that,
with old
yeah.
teammates about it now.
No, I didn't hear anything.
Might need a refresher course.
And I know. I hear.
No, but we were. It's like a 2-bed, 1 bath. It's like $750,000.
Yeah, I know.
2 million. Like,
Okay, so here we go. Last heat of the heavyweight 4s coming up. And we got our 6-boat race here. Columbia, Fairfield, Gonzaga, Cornell, Holy Cross, and Marietta out here in lane 6. So running from lane 1, Columbia, Marietta in the lane closest to the drone. And it looks like our early leader, Holy Cross, getting a nice start. Holy Cross in the black hull. You can see them in lane 5. They have the lead right now over Cornell. And it looks like Fairfield running in 3rd, very close with Marietta. And Columbia and Gonzaga. Columbia is right there with Fairfield and Marietta, and Gonzaga just a little bit behind them. We have basically overlap of the 6-boat field right now. And it looks like Cornell's trying to reel in Holy Cross, who had the nice quick start. So right now, maybe a deck Holy Cross over Cornell with Marietta, Fairfield, and Columbia very close behind. So it's looking right now like we are going to have a very good race in heat number 4 of the Varsity 4 race. So crossing the line, you can see from the drone view, Holy Cross has that lead, but Cornell is inching back into it, right with Fairfield moving with them. Columbia as well is trying to creep up on that Holy Cross lead, and I think that Holy Cross lead is almost gone. So let's head it out to the launch for the call of the middle 1,000.
The Cross out here in lane 5 seems to have the advantage at the moment. Very closely followed by Cornell in 4. Gonzaga in 3 is probably in 3rd, then switches back over here to Marietta in lane 6, then back over to 1 to Columbia, will be running in 5th, and Fairfield in 6th. Now Cornell takes the lead. Fairfield is up, beg your pardon, in lane 2 over Columbia. Yep. And Gonzaga. So Cornell is your leader. Holy Cross is second. And Cornell has about 4 seats on Holy Cross. Marietta, Fairfield running at 3rd, 4th spot. And all the way over to Columbia. And then back to Gonzaga. Thank you. Gonzaga, lane 3. Okay, looks like Holy Cross is taking a move here just before the 1,000. And they are being pressed out in lane 6 by Milwaukee. Oh, Marietta, sorry. Got that one wrong. Marietta. We got MCO on the guide sheet here. So very tight race here. Cornell first. Still a couple of seats up over Holy Cross and Marietta. And those 3 have really pulled away from the other 3. Fairfield in 4th, Columbia 5, then Gonzaga. Marietta making a strong push here for first. And I think they've wrested it away from Cornell. Holy Cross now back in 3rd as Marietta starts to put on a nice spurt here. Whether they can sustain it we'll see. But they have really put on the gas here now, as Stroke is almost got the bows of Holy Cross and Cornell. Holy Cross and Cornell are stroke for stroke and seat for seat. But wow, Marietta took off here, and they popped the rating. They look a little bit smaller of build than some of the other kids, so this looks like more of a midweight crew. Apologies to the kids if they're not, but they look a little bit leaner than the others, and they have just put on the gas, and now they have open water. So they were employing what I call the rope-a-dope first 1,000, and they have busted it open right now. So Holy Cross now has gotten away from Cornell, and we get ready to pass it over to the tower. In that order, Marietta, Holy Cross, Cornell, the top leaders. Over to the tower.
500 meters there, really pushing themselves out into that lead. That was a very strong third 500 to move through Holy Cross and Cornell into that qualifying position. So we'll see if they can maintain it. They may have put too much effort into that third 500 with Cornell and Holy Cross right behind them. So a very good move by the Pioneers to press for that finish line and that qualifying spot. So we have a leader, Marietta, right now. Holy Cross and Cornell challenging them, with Columbia, Fairfield, and Gonzaga trailing. But right now, Marietta making a good move. Coming into the final 250 meters. They're into the red buoys right now. It looks like they have that separation from Holy Cross and from Cornell. Looks like that Marietta crew will be moving on to the semifinals for the men's varsity 4. So a fantastic second 1,000 for the crew from Marietta. Holy Cross with an early start. Couldn't hold on when Marietta threw down a great move in the third 500. So right now, Marietta has the lead. Holy Cross in second. Cornell's dropped back to third. Moving on to the reps for these other crews. But Marietta looking like your crew that's going to be qualifying through to the semifinal. It's Marietta with a slight touch of open water ahead of Holy Cross. Holy Cross with open water ahead of Cornell. And close racing here between Columbia, Fairfield, and finally Gonzaga in the 6th position. So a good, exciting race for heat number 4 of the men's varsity 4. So, and those remaining crews from the varsity 4s will be back here this afternoon, 3:40 till 4:10 p.m., running in 4 repechage races with 2 boats from each rep qualifying into tomorrow's semifinal races. So coming up next, we move back into the men's lightweight categories with the first heat of the lightweight 4s, and then heat number 2 of the lightweight 4, and then into 2 heats of the lightweight straight 4s. So the coxless 4s to finish off the morning session here at the 2017 IRA National Championships. We'll be getting the unofficial race results of heat number 4 to you shortly, and then turning it back out to the start line for the start of the lightweight 4s. The first heat of the lightweight 4s coming up here will be Columbia in lane number 1, Cornell in 2, Harvard in 3, Colgate in 4, and Princeton in 5. And so heat number 4 for the men's varsity 4, the winner was Marietta in a time of 6:38.1. Holy Cross in second at 6:42.0. Cornell 6:50.1. Columbia 6:52.3. Fairfield 6:53.8. And Gonzaga in 6:56.7. So that completes the heats for the heavyweight boats this morning. And we move now to the lightweight 4s. So off to the start of heat number 1 of the men's varsity lightweight 4.
And we are at the start of the men's lightweight Coxed 4, Heat 1. And these crews are off. Looking like a clean start across the board. Again, Columbia, Cornell, Harvard, Colgate, and Princeton in this Heat 1. And it's looking like a fast start from all of these crews. I'd say particularly Colgate over in lane 1. And Harvard in lane 3. Princeton in lane 5 as well. I'd say those three are early leaders here. So a nice fast start from Colgate. Princeton now starting to assert its dominance in the first 400 meters. And these crews now moving towards the 500 down. Again, with Columbia in lane 1. Columbia got out fast. And I'd say it's Columbia over Harvard. As these crews now approach the 500 down, just about 10 strokes away, I'd say it's Columbia, Harvard, Princeton. Keeping an eye on these three crews as they move into the second 5. Columbia got there first, followed by Princeton, Harvard, and will hand it over to the water for the middle 1,000.
Third of a length over Cornell. Cornell with a half a length over Princeton. Princeton just about a seat over Colgate. So it's 1 length and maybe a splash of open for Columbia over Harvard. Harvard now under pressure from Cornell. Looks like Cornell's rowing a little bit higher than Harvard, a beat or two. And they are a half a length behind Harvard and slightly easing away from Colgate and Princeton, who are about 2/3 of a length behind Cornell and dead level. Harvard now makes a little move. Harvard's back to overlapping with Columbia. It's Harvard moving up, and that has broken them away from Cornell a bit. They're now nearly a length ahead of Cornell. Meanwhile, on the far side, it is Princeton closing in on Cornell. They are now just about level with the Big Red, and it is Colgate just about a seat behind those two. So with 3 to go through, this could be a dandy all the way down. It's Harvard sneaking back into this. Harvard now half a length behind Columbia, who is led from stroke number 1. It's now a little bit of open water from Harvard to Princeton and Cornell, who are even, and 1 seat further back to Colgate. We've got about 1,000 meters here. Columbia digs in and stops that Harvard move. It's 3/4 of a length, Columbia over Harvard. Harvard with a couple of feet of open water over Princeton and Cornell. Those two level, 1 seat ahead of Colgate. Harvard charges again. Harvard back to within half a length of Columbia. Columbia looks like they've taken the beat up just a hair. Harvard looks a little bit crisper around the finishes right this moment as the fatigue starts to settle in. Harvard clearly closing in. It's about 1/3 of a length now from Columbia back to Harvard. But the key race, the race for third and the final, is still quite a battle. We've still got Cornell, Princeton, and Colgate within about 3 feet of one another. 700 meters to go. Harvard draws to within 2 seats of Columbia. Harvard with half a length of open water now over Cornell, who has about a seat over Princeton, who has about a seat over Colgate. So as we approach 500 meters, up in the front of the pack, Harvard is charging down Columbia. They have now drawn level and are nosing in front. And length and a half behind that, it's Cornell, it's Princeton, dead level, it's Colgate, 1 seat from that. We're going to turn you over to the finish line. This is going to want to watch.
And now moving through the last 500, and what a race. This is heat 1 of the men's lightweight 4, with the top 3 advancing straight to the grand and all others to the petite. It is a race for third right now, with Columbia and Harvard are clear leaders, while Princeton, Cornell, Colgate all fight for that third place position. Again, we saw really clean strokes from Columbia, fast first 500 for them. Harvard caught up a little bit here, but these two crews right now thinking about the grand final and advancing straight there. And it's a race for third. We will see as these crews get a little bit closer who stands in that third spot qualifying position, with first, second, and third, again, moving straight to the grand final. Right now, it's looking like that will be Columbia and Harvard. Who will go with them? These crews now moving into the last 250. It's Columbia and Harvard. I'd say Harvard over Columbia. What a race for third here. Look at these crews go. Harvard surging now through the last 20 strokes. Columbia. And I'd say it's looking like it's Princeton who will go with them. Harvard, though, clearly in first place, followed by Princeton. Columbia now well into their sprint. And it's Harvard now moving through the line to take first. It is Columbia in second, with the Tigers in third. These three crews moving to the grand final. And what a race in this heat 1. It is Harvard, Columbia, and Princeton to advance to the grand, with the remaining 3 crews moving to the petite final. And up next, the second heat of 2 for the men's lightweight 4. Right before I sneezed, I was like, turn that off.
Remember the great stomp thing?
And we are off for the men's varsity lightweight 4. This is heat 2. Again, with the top 3 spots advancing straight to the grand final and the remaining crews to the petite. Clean starts across the board here from all of these crews. And right now it looks like Navy moving well. Pennsylvania 2 in heat 2 of the lightweight 4. MIT getting out pretty quick out of the gate here as well. But Yale now starting to assert its position. Pretty tight racing across the board in this heat as these crews move through about 300 to 400 meters down towards the 500-meter mark. But I'd say look out for Navy on the far side. Navy moving pretty quick here with Yale. I think these are our 2 early leaders, Navy and Yale, as we look towards the middle 1,000 of this race.
Over Georgetown, looks like, in lane 3. Oh, Dartmouth. You got the green shirts there. So apologies to our brethren up in Hanover. Dartmouth doing a nice job here in lane 3. Then in lane 5, it looks like Yale is running very tight with Penn over in lane 2. Call those 2 a seat apart. Then it's back to MIT and Georgetown trails. So Georgetown in lane 4, about a length back of the engineers. So Navy's striding out here. They were hoping for some rough water like the Severn, but all they got was this mill pond here today. And they are looking very comfortable and reaching out long strokes in that Navy crew. They have a full length over Dartmouth, the Big Green, formerly the Indians. And now I think Yale, it's very close between Yale and Penn. Maybe give Penn a seat. I think Penn is taking a move right here. They are. And they now have a seat or a little bit more, maybe 2 seats over Yale. So the Yale coxswain not looking right at the moment, and Penn is really pulled away from Yale. Well, Navy continues its advance down the lake here with about 15 feet of open water over Dartmouth. Dartmouth, steady as she goes, is holding back Pennsylvania and Yale. MIT running in 5th, about a length behind Yale, and then Georgetown trails. So the midshipmen here are pressing hard, getting their hands out of bow very quickly. Maybe look a little bit higher on the rating. And Pennsylvania still advancing on Dartmouth. So question is, can Dartmouth notice in time? The Dartmouth coxswain looking straight ahead, so probably relying on any verbal messages from the bowman. But so far, and that must be a very small coxswain, wouldn't you say, Bob? All I see is a little tiny head poking out of the bow. I don't know if our cameraman can catch that, but that looks like a child in the bow there. No offense to our undergraduate there, but a small coxswain in the Dartmouth crew as they continue to hold off Pennsylvania. But Penn is winding it up, and the Quakers have shown some really good resolve on the race course here this morning. And they are still bow seat even with Dartmouth stroke. Naval Academy out front, comfortably in front. Nothing has changed in the back of the pack with the 3, Yale, MIT, and Georgetown. So can Pennsylvania catch the Big Green? That's the question here. With 500 meters to go, 3 to qualify here. All 3 of these are just racing for lanes in the semis. But Navy's put on quite the show here, and we'll turn it over to our expert commentary, at the finish line.
Navy, calm, cool, and collected here, out in first. Again, with the top three moving straight to the grand final, and the remaining crews going to the petite. Of course, we saw Dartmouth starting to push out over Penn. We'll see as these crews get a little bit closer exactly what's happening now. But last we saw, looked like Dartmouth had at least 3/4 of a length over Pennsylvania, with Navy long and strong out in front of the rest of the field. And so keeping an eye on Navy and Yale. And Navy now coming through lane 1. They'll be the first to cross the line. And it looks like Dartmouth is looking to go with them. Dartmouth a length and more over Pennsylvania. I'd say just about a length, so Dartmouth in second, Pennsylvania in third. These are our three crews moving straight to the grand final as Yale comes through in fourth. MIT in lane 5, coming through in fifth with Georgetown in lane 6. And so Navy, Dartmouth, and Penn looking to move to the grand final with the remainders to the petite. So that was the men's lightweight 4. To round out the heats for this morning, up next is the men's lightweight straight 4 with 2 heats in that event. And the times are in for the men's lightweight 4. That was heat 2. Navy taking the lead at 6:33.2. Dartmouth in second at a 6:38.8. Penn in third, 6:40.8, which means Navy, Dartmouth, and Penn advance to the grand. Yale in fourth at 6:46.9. MIT in fifth, 6:54.4, with Georgetown in sixth at a 7:01 flat. And locked into the stake boats is the men's varsity lightweight straight 4 heat 1. So again, these 4s do not have a coxswain. They are coxless boats. And just like we saw in the last lightweight 4 heats, this will be 3 boats to advance to the grand final, with a remainder of the crews heading to the petite finals. And in heat 1, we have lane 1, Georgetown, lane 2, Cornell, lane 3, Princeton, lane 4, Dartmouth, and lane 5, MIT. These crews gaining their point. And this is the noon race, the men's lightweight straight 4, heat 1 of 2. And these crews are off. Clean starts across the board from all 5 of these crews. Looks like Princeton had a nice start. Cornell as well. Not to count out Georgetown too, but I'd say Cornell had the cleanest or at least fastest start. Dartmouth right up there with them in the first 250 meters of this race. And Dartmouth seems to be ahead. Dartmouth now about a half a length, almost 3/4 of a length over lane 5, MIT. With Cornell now pushing their bow ball out, but I'd say it's Dartmouth with a slight advantage over second place Cornell. Princeton sitting third, Georgetown fourth, MIT fifth. These crews about 400 meters down, and it is pretty even, tight racing between Cornell, Princeton, Dartmouth. Princeton now sliding to edge out their bow ball a little bit as these crews settle into their base cadence. I'd say it's Princeton advantage now over Dartmouth. Definite advantage over Dartmouth. Tight racing still between Cornell. Dartmouth now starting to fall a little bit back with about 10 strokes to the 500 down. It'll be Princeton who gets there first. Princeton, Cornell, Dartmouth, Georgetown, MIT. Princeton by about a half a length over Cornell for first and second respectively. Again, this is a race for third. Third, 3 boats to the grand. Over to the launch.
Lead. Those two are locked in stroke for stroke, bow ball to bow ball, 3/4 of a length ahead of Georgetown. From Georgetown, it's a half a length further back to Dartmouth, and then a length from Dartmouth back to MIT. And now Princeton pokes its nose in front. Princeton has about a deck almost on Cornell as those two pull away by nearly a length. It's Cornell by 1 length over Georgetown, with Dartmouth closing in on Georgetown. That's within a seat or two now. Then it's a little open water back to MIT. Yeah, Princeton continues their move. Princeton now with nearly half a length at 800 meters gone over Cornell. Cornell looks like they're under some pressure now. It's less than a length from Cornell back to Georgetown. Georgetown still with a slim margin over Dartmouth. So with 3 to qualify, you've got Princeton 3/4 of a length ahead of Cornell, your leader. Cornell not quite a length on Georgetown. Georgetown barely ahead of Dartmouth, and MIT trailing. So approaching the 1,000, it's still the Princeton Tigers. Cruising through, they've now just about opened water. It's about a foot or two of open water. Princeton back to Cornell. Cornell has blunted that drive from Georgetown. They're now nearly a length up again over Georgetown for second place. Georgetown in third, still with a few feet over Dartmouth. So we're 1,200 meters in. It's now Princeton with 6 feet of open water. Cornell with just about exactly a length over Georgetown. So right now it looks like a dogfight going to happen between the Hoyas and the Dartmouth crew for that last qualifying spot. At the moment, it's Georgetown by about 3 feet over Dartmouth. It looks like Dartmouth trying to make a little move to get into that qualifying position at 7:50 to go. But it's now Princeton moving away. They've got now nearly 2 lengths over Cornell. Cornell, slight touch of open water over Dartmouth and Cornell. Dartmouth and Georgetown, who are just about level. And it looks like the Hanover boys are nosing through. It's Dartmouth now with a 1-seat lead over Georgetown as we approach the 500-meter mark. So with 3 to qualify, it's Princeton coasting away. Cornell safely in second, but the Dartmouth move is actually moving back into them. Dartmouth, however, has just about half a length, and that's all, over Georgetown as they step it up toward the finish.
Race here in the men's lightweight straight 4. Again, Princeton, our clear leader. Cornell with Dartmouth in third. Dartmouth really getting to work in the middle 1,000. They know that it's 3 to go to the grand, and this is their chance. As we saw Dartmouth, last we saw a slight advantage over Georgetown. As these crews get a little closer, we'll see more. But I'm looking at Princeton in first, Cornell in second. I'd say Dartmouth in third, but look out for Georgetown in lane 1. 3 to the grand. It is a race for third. Moving into the last 250, Princeton clearly in control of this race. Long and strong with a little bit of a lower stroke rate than the rest of the field. They're looking to just cruise through the last 250 with Cornell in second, Dartmouth in third, and Georgetown doing everything they can to move into that third place position. But it's Princeton with solid open water over the rest of the field. Cornell, Dartmouth moving through the last stretch of this. I'm going to say it's Dartmouth right now over Georgetown, but man, look at Princeton go. They are not looking back in this straight 4. Cornell, Dartmouth racing to solidify that second and third place position with Georgetown now in a solid 4th. Look at Georgetown try, but it is definitely Princeton. I'm saying Cornell for second, Dartmouth in third, Georgetown racing, try as they might, but it is Cornell second, Dartmouth third, Georgetown 4th. We'll have times in a moment, but really tight race for third there. Beautiful as MIT comes through on the far side. I'm saying Princeton, Cornell, Dartmouth in third, Georgetown 4th, MIT 5th. We'll have times in a moment. So it's Navy, Dartmouth, and Penn from our prior heat.
Willie, do you want them to pick up Brent Dean? Hang on, he's got them on the other line. Okay, we'll get you lots of water. It's fine. Okay. The SD works flawlessly. All right. Thank you. We do drop out, though, when you get to that 500, so it's a good handoff point. Everything's functioning really well. Hey, Paul? Okay, so they're going to stay there. Yeah, but we need to get them food and clean water. So the break up on our end, well, ask Liz if she's willing to come up, grab some food, whatnot, take it back down there. We want to put the Army antenna on as well as that stuff. So the launch will be in relation to a lot of that stuff. I want to put the Army on your launch.
Yes, one more, heat 1. So it's Princeton, times are in for heat 1 of the lightweight, straight 4, it's Princeton, second Cornell, third Dartmouth, 4th Georgetown, 5th MIT, which means Princeton, Cornell, and Dartmouth advance straight to the grand final. With a half a second between Dartmouth in third and Georgetown in 4th. Oh, shit. Thank you. And we are off in Heat 2 of the men's lightweight straight 4. Again, this is the last of the heats this morning. We just saw a very exciting race in Heat 1, and I'd say all of these crews now pretty close out of the gate. Advantage to Yale. I'd say second Columbia in lane 4. And not to count out Harvard over in lane 2, I'd say it's Columbia now over Yale and Harvard. Harvard starting to press ahead. It's Columbia and Harvard. I'd say third Yale, Navy right in the mix. These crews are moving through the first 500. And again, it's a race for third. I'd say it's now Harvard over Columbia by about a bow deck. Harvard starting to assert its dominance about 300, 400 meters down. It's Harvard first, Columbia second, Navy third, Yale fourth. Harvard is cruising, now starting to open up their lead a little bit more here and not looking back, which means Harvard is first to cross into the second 500. I'd say followed by Columbia. Fred, over to you for the middle 1,000.
Races are a lot quieter than the other races because we only have a bowman or a two-man making the calls and a lot less talking as they're rowing as well. So Harvard is out front, as you can see on your screen, with almost 3/4 of a length over Navy. Columbia would be running in third, Pennsylvania 4, and then Yale 5. The margins about, well, let's see. As I said, Harvard 3/4 over Navy. Navy maybe just a deck or a little more over the Lions here from New York City. Then over to the Quakers in lane 1, about 3/4 of a length up on Yale. So steady as she goes for the Crimson. They've been working on their rhythm on the Charles River in Boston, and it's paid off. Got a nice flow, and they're reaching out, sticking their blades in and pressing down, opening up and swinging open. And they've got almost a full length on the midshipman. Midshipman trying to take a press right here before the 1,000. Did we go through the 1,000? No, there it is. There's the 1,000. Looking for those red markers. And Harvard's got a good ratio there, so they're in control. Navy's making a press. Navy's come back a little bit on Harvard. Columbia now clearly owns third over Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania half a length over Yale. A little bit of breeze here, a little headwind. Not too much, but a little texture on the water now for the first time. Last couple of races. And Harvard continues to impress in this particular heat. I'd say they're about 35. Navy maybe a little higher at 36. Columbia pretty comfortable, 35.5, 36. Now it looks like Pennsylvania's taking a move here in the third 500. And I think they've come up maybe to challenge Columbia for that third spot. What do you think, Bob? Yes. My boatmate Bob says Penn has come up and wrested away that lead, that third place position from Columbia. Harvard now almost 3/4 of a length open water over Navy. Navy better get a little bit more run between strokes or they're going to run the risk of burning up here. They've got some closing crews in Penn and Columbia. Navy looks like they're spinning their wheels just a little bit. 500 to go. Harvard way out front, full length of open. But Pennsylvania and Columbia coming back on Navy, or Navy giving ground, I would say, to those two crews. So definitely the Academy here needs to watch out. And Pennsylvania almost level now with Navy. So we'll bring it down a little bit farther, and Willie, you can shut me off when you're tired of hearing me. But Pennsylvania has now, I think, got the second spot. Yep, Pennsylvania clearly has second. Navy in third. Columbia.
And moving into the last 500, an exciting race for the men's lightweight straight four. Harvard clearly out ahead and not looking back. And what a race between Pennsylvania and Navy. With Pennsylvania in second and Navy in third, these crews have moved past Columbia to solidify those first three positions to advance to the Grand. Harvard a little bit lower than the rest of the field, cruising in their first place position with open water. Right now, keeping an eye on Penn, Navy, and Columbia as these crews move into the last 20 or so strokes. It is Harvard all day, clearly dictating this race here as they move through the last 10 or so. Tight racing here for second, third, and fourth. I'd say it's Pennsylvania in lane one. Moving now, Pennsylvania, Navy, Columbia, all very close, but it's Pennsylvania in second. It's Navy in third right now. Can Columbia do it? I think they've run out of time, which puts Penn in second, Navy third, Columbia fourth. With these top three crews advancing to the Grand, and on the far side, Yale in fifth, which means it's Harvard, Navy, and Pennsylvania to join Cornell, Princeton, and Dartmouth in the Grand Final. And this concludes this morning's heats. We'll start the repechage at 2 p.m., starting with the men's Varsity 8. See you there.